Chapter 645. Panting, Fong Beibei carried the heavy basket and climbed up the stairs. Then, after a long time, she used her left hand to take out the key from her right trouser pocket. The moment she took it out, Fong Beibei suddenly realized that she was so stupid that she almost cried. She opened the door with a clatter. It wasn't locked? I remember it was locked. Fong Beibei opened the door in confusion and saw a butt at the entrance. Before she could see clearly, a clear and pleasant voice suddenly sounded from the side. Sister Beibei. Kiki. Fong Beibei looked over in surprise. A small figure rushed over from the side and bumped into the woman who was pouting, causing her to stagger. Kiki immediately rushed over and excitedly hugged Fong Beibei's leg and jumped up and down. But the basket in Fong Beibei's hand was really heavy. She couldn't free her hands to hug Kiki. She could only cry out in surprise. Aya, Kiki, you're back? Poplar Fruit, who had just been packing, got up from the ground. He smiled and said, You went to buy groceries? I thought you went back to school. I was going to put away my things and change my clothes before going to find you. Poplar Fruit reached out his hand, and Fong Beibei naturally handed the basket in her hand to Poplar Fruit. She picked up Kiki, closed the door and said, I didn't know Uncle would come back. You didn't know? Poplar Fruit scratched his head in confusion and asked, Didn't I tell you last night? Fong Beibei gave him a dirty look and said angrily, Who knows which side you went back to? Poplar Fruit smiled and said softly, I remember you said to let me stay at the teacher's dormitory when I come back. A smile immediately appeared in Fong Beibei's eyes. However, Poplar Fruit added, Besides, I haven't told Song Jiwen that I'm coming back. It's already so late. If we go back at this time, I'm afraid it'll be inconvenient for the girl. Fong Beibei knew that he was such a clumsy fellow, so she pushed him reproachfully and said, All right, I know. Hurry up and put the vegetables down. They're so heavy. Before she could finish, the impatient Kiki turned Fong Beibei's face away. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. The little guy had a lot of things he wanted to tell Sister Beibei. But as soon as they met, Sister Beibei kept talking to his father. How could this be? The little guy was very jealous. Poplar Fruit smiled and looked at Kiki, who was sticking to Fong Beibei again. He left them some space and turned to the kitchen. When he left, he kicked Gold, who was sniffing around Fong Beibei's feet, and said with a smile, What's wrong? We haven't seen each other for more than a month, and you don't recognize us anymore? After putting the vegetables in the basket, Poplar Fruit was about to wash the vegetables. Fong Beibei came up with an apron and said, Uncle, don't stay in the kitchen. Poplar Fruit was stunned for a while and said, You want to cook? What? You think I can't cook, right? Fong Beibei went up to Poplar Fruit and looked up at him with a fierce look in her eyes. No, Poplar Fruit quickly denied. In fact, he knew that Fong Beibei could cook, but it was a little ordinary. If she didn't pay attention, she might cook the vegetables. However, even if Poplar Fruit was a blockhead, he knew that he couldn't tell the truth at this time. Fong Beibei let go of Poplar Fruit's waist, raised her head and said, Don't look down on me, understand? Turning around, Fong Beibei skillfully picked the vegetables and said, During this holiday, I asked my mother for real kung fu. If you still don't believe me, I won't let you eat later. Poplar Fruit nodded hard and said, I believe you, I believe you. After that he wanted to help, but Fong Beibei pushed him away. Aya, don't stand here and watch. Fong Beibei stomped her feet and said, Go and pack your things, then take a shower with Kiki, then we can eat. You're travel-worn now, you stink. Of course, this was an excuse. Fong Beibei always felt that Poplar Fruit, the chef, was standing behind her. As a new little chef, she felt a little guilty. She might as well cook it herself. If it was burnt, she could secretly throw it away. Poplar Fruit took it seriously. He smelled his clothes and walked out with a smile. In the end, just as he stepped out, Fong Beibei closed the glass door of the kitchen. Poplar Fruit could only obediently pack their luggage. Inside the luggage were the father and daughter's clothes and utensils, which were easier to pack. However, other than the luggage, there were also 2 big woven bags, which were specialties from the Miaowei people. This would take some time. Seeing Kiki run over in boredom, Poplar Fruit smiled and asked, Kiki, didn't you say that you wanted to tell Sister Bebe your story? Why didn't you say anything? Sister Bebe said that she wanted to cook. Chi-Chi is also hungry. Chi-Chi said without raising her head as she leaned on the stool beside her father and looked at him. As Poplar Fruit was packing, he slapped Jeansy, who was coming over, away to stop him from eating the cured pork in the bag. This was not the kind that could be found in ordinary shops. It was black pork raised in the mountains. Poplar Fruit had eaten it in the Miaowei village before, and it was very delicious. Occasionally, Poplar Fruit would raise his head and look in the direction of the kitchen. Fong Bebe happened to be looking at him as well, and their eyes met. Although they were separated by a blurry glass door, Poplar Fruit could only see Fong Bebe's shadow in his eyes at that moment. Fong Bebe was the same. When they first met, they did not show much affection because Kiki was in the middle. It was as if they had just gone out for a stroll. However, the longing for her after not seeing each other for more than a month had already set off a storm in their hearts. Only at that moment, separated by a glass door, did their emotions slowly extend in their eyes. It was as if they had each reached out an invisible hand and touched each other gently in the middle of their eyes. The warmth continued to evaporate under the warm light. The two of them looked at each other for more than 5 minutes, and their necks did not ache at all. Fong Bebe was the first to succumb to Poplar Fruit's passionate gaze. She blinked and turned her head away shyly. Fortunately, Fong Bebe was still washing the vegetables and had not officially started the fire. Otherwise, the vegetables in the pot would have turned into a black lump in these 5 minutes. Fong Bebe fiddled with the vegetables in the basin absent-mindedly. She did not notice that she had washed the piece of Shanghai green no less than 10 times. Other than washing it clean, there were also a few holes in the leaves. Poplar Fruit was still intoxicated by the atmosphere just now. Even if it was just looking at the person he liked, it was still blissful. He had just returned from a long journey and was tiredly packing his luggage. Fong Bebe was busy preparing dinner in the kitchen, and his daughter and the dog were making noise at the side. This feeling was really wonderful. Perhaps this was called home. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 646. Generally speaking, two people who had not seen each other for a long time would feel a little awkward. However, Poplar Fruit and Fong Bebe's table did not have an oppressive silence. On the contrary, the two of them chatted very naturally, as if they had been eating together every day. In fact, that was not the case. Even before Poplar Fruit's confession, Fong Bebe's experience of the two of them eating together at Poplar Fruit's house could be counted on 2 hands. However, although they had not seen each other for a long time, they called each other every day. Their understanding of each other was not any less than that of a couple who spent every day together. Of course, this was also due to Kiki's contribution. Kiki kept waving her little hands at the table, interrupting the conversation between her father and Sister Bebe. The atmosphere changed from ambiguous pink to relaxed and joyful. Poplar Fruit took a grain of rice from his daughter's chubby little face and said with a smile, "Bebe, you asked your mother for advice on today's dishes, right? I remember that you don't know how to cook fish." "Of course, but I also made a little innovation of my own," Fong Bebe said proudly. "Are you talking about this little lemon?" Poplar Fruit pointed at the slices of lemon placed next to the fish fin and said with a smile, "That's just for decoration, right?" "What?" Fong Bebe put down her chopsticks and said angrily, "It's not just for decoration. Don't you think that the fishy smell has been covered a lot?" Poplar Fruit raised his eyebrows and said against his will, "Yes, it's indeed better." In fact, Poplar Fruit felt that the fish was really ordinary. Because it was steamed freshwater fish, there was no shredded ginger to remove the fishy smell of the fish. Also, the fish was steamed for too long, and was not fresh enough. Anyway, in his opinion, the shortcomings far outweighed the advantages. However, Poplar Fruit was picky when it came to food. It was really good for a beginner to be able to cook at this level. How could he compare with a chef like him in everything? Poplar Fruit pondered for a while and thought it through. He sincerely praised Fong Bebe for her improvement, which made Fong Bebe feel very happy for the whole night. That's right. Who would spend so much effort to prepare a table of dishes just to get the other party's comments? Other than those who learned to be chefs, which girl didn't want to receive a warm response from their kind intentions? He seemed to have learned something. Poplar Fruit made a mental note. Although his EQ was a little low, he was still very active in seeking improvement in front of the woman he loved. Uncle, what's your plan for tomorrow? Fong Bebe gave Kiki a piece of vegetable and asked her to eat it. Then she asked Poplar Fruit. In fact, when Fong Bebe asked this question, she already knew the answer. Just now when Poplar Fruit called Song Jiwen, Fong Bebe was serving the dishes at the side. I'm going back to meet my friends and have a meal. Poplar Fruit said. By the way, I'll move some clothes over here. Chananlin? Fong Bebe was very wary of this name. Poplar Fruit nodded and said honestly, Mosquito said she's at home and asked her out tomorrow. Fong Bebe didn't say anything. She just looked at him. If she didn't bite her lower lip, how seductive would her pretty face be? Poplar Fruit couldn't resist. He laughed and said, Actually, I'm not very familiar with her. She also practices Tai Chi, and her Kung Fu is not bad. This time there's Mosquito. Fong Bebe actually knew Poplar Fruit's character. She also knew that Poplar Fruit wasn't the kind of person who would fall in love with anyone he saw, but she just didn't know. Why don't you come with us? 2 guys and 2 girls are just right. Seeing Fong Bebe's expression, Poplar Fruit had an idea and said, I'm not going. Fong Bebe jumped up all of a sudden. She said with a smile, I won't disturb Uncle from picking up girls. The veins on Poplar Fruit's forehead jumped. If it weren't for Kiki, he would have knocked this guy's head. What was he thinking? Kiki gnawed on the Shanghai green in her hand. Saliva and vegetable juice dripped down, staining her chin and the bib on her chest. She turned her head and looked at her father with her big innocent eyes. She didn't know why her father's aura had changed. Poplar Fruit said helplessly, What are you thinking? It's really just a meal between friends. Hey, didn't I bring Kiki with me? What can she do? Hoo-hoo, you always use Kiki as a cover. Didn't you always rely on Kiki to act cute to trick me into coming over? Fong Bebe ridiculed in her heart. This little girl's skin was very thin. Although she ridiculed, Fong Bebe's heart was actually very sweet. She felt that Poplar Fruit cared about her. After seriously considering Poplar Fruit's suggestion, Fong Bebe shook her head and said awkwardly, Really, I can't do it tomorrow. I want to discuss the homework with the senior brothers and sisters. After rejecting senior sister Shen Hong's suggestion tonight, Fong Bebe felt a little embarrassed. No matter what, she couldn't leave the team tomorrow. There were only 2 days left before the homework was due. If she spent another day with Poplar Fruit outside, senior sister Shen Hong would have a problem with it. Fong Bebe also explained the importance of the homework to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit nodded and smiled. It's okay. You're about to go abroad for a competition. You're not only representing yourself, but also our school and even our country. Do your best. Fong Bebe nodded seriously. Poplar Fruit took care of the dishes while Fong Bebe accompanied Kiki to talk in the living room. As they wiped the water off their hands, they returned to the living room. Poplar Fruit saw Kiki hugging Fong Bebe's neck intimately and was extremely envious. Fong Bebe seemed to sense something. She glanced at Poplar Fruit and then followed Poplar Fruit's gaze. She lowered her head and saw Kiki's small hand on her chest. Bang! Fong Bebe's cheeks flushed red. She raised her right hand and gently moved the Lushan's claw away. Then she threw a threatening look at Poplar Fruit. Uncle, if you dare to say anything, you're dead. At this time, they could only change the topic. Poplar Fruit and Fong Bebe talked about the long-distance education that Poplar Fruit was currently busy with. If you're not there, what if something goes wrong? Fong Bebe asked worriedly. It's not a problem. Uncle Meng will help with the government. Fat Dragon and Kai Simin are both experts in technology. The people in Meng Village are in charge of the engineering. I won't be able to help much even if I stay there. Poplar Fruit smiled. Fong Bebe nodded in agreement. Indeed, you can't do it yourself. But what are you in charge of? Poplar Fruit replied. In Yangcheng, I'll set up the platform at the other end of our long-distance education. I'll probably rent a house. Then, I'll ask the dean if I can find a few students to form a charity club. All right. Poplar Fruit slapped his thigh and smiled. The most important thing right now is to buy a computer. I left my computer in Mung Village for Fat Dragon to use. Fat Dragon and Kai Simin did not bring their own computers over. It was not suitable to use the Comet computer for large-scale programming. The configuration could not keep up. Therefore, Poplar Fruit left the new computer that he bought less than a month ago in Xiong Village. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 647. Why are you looking at me like that? Under the gaze of Fong Beibei's beautiful eyes, which were as pure as spring water, Poplar Fruit couldn't handle it anymore. It wasn't because he was guilty, nor was it because he was afraid that his thoughts would be exposed. It was because he really didn't know why Fong Beibei would suddenly stare at him while talking. You don't have any money, right? Fong Beibei asked softly. I do. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, how can I not have money? There's definitely not much left. Fong Beibei said without hesitation. She used her arm to hold Kiki, and used 2 fingers to count for Poplar Fruit. Look on that card of yours before. There was more than 19 million, right? Poplar Fruit nodded. $3 million was converted into RMB, and with his original savings, it was indeed that much. When you were in Beijing, you invested $5 million in Wanhe. Fong Beibei paused, and looked at Poplar Fruit with some inexplicable emotions. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, yeah, I told you before. Poplar Fruit felt that there was nothing to hide about this. When he was talking to Fong Beibei about the video where he and Kiki made a cameo appearance, he casually mentioned it. He didn't expect Fong Beibei to remember it. Then, Ludong invested 2 million and Fat Dragon, you also gave him 1 million. Poplar Fruit nodded every time Fong Beibei said something. Although you don't have shares in your family's factory and online store, you still invested a few $100,000. There's also the money to repair the house and give to your parents. Although I don't know how much, it should be around 1 million in total, right? Fong Beibei said, there's also your own expenses, the insurance for Kiki, and the investment for the education fund. Kiki's was paid in installments, Poplar Fruit reminded. I know, I've already spent $500,000, Fong Beibei calculated, and then continued. There's also the house you bought. Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. He remembered that he didn't tell Fong Beibei about this. Not only Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit also hid it from everyone, because he spent a lot of money to buy the house. At first, when he bought insurance for Kiki, he thought he should buy her a house. Then he found a few new houses. In the end, he was attracted by a house. Poplar Fruit had a special desire. When he was young, he especially wanted to live in a house. Now his house was a 3-story house, but that was his hometown. In Yangcheng, the house that left the deepest impression on Poplar Fruit was Big Brother He's house. However, a house like that was expensive in Yangcheng. It wasn't that Poplar Fruit couldn't afford it. He gritted his teeth and bought a house in the suburbs without needing a loan. However, buying a house in the suburbs meant that it was inconvenient. It would take 2 to 3 hours to drive back to school, and that was under the condition that there were no traffic jams. Since a house was unrealistic, Poplar Fruit could only think of a house. Song Jiwen's house was very beautiful. It had 2 floors, and it could be considered a house. Therefore, when Poplar Fruit saw the house that the real estate sales lady showed him, he couldn't stay calm. There was a small garden, and the lighting and north and south orientation were very good. Of course, the price wasn't cheap either. However, Poplar Fruit's concept of money was a little vague at that time, so he impulsively took out the money, and it was the full amount. How did you know? Poplar Fruit scratched his head and asked. I saw it. Fong Beibei giggled. Your contract was on the table and you didn't even tidy it up. I really forgot about it. Poplar Fruit shrugged and said. It hasn't been handed over yet. It will be handed over in March next year, and then I will have to spend money to find someone to renovate it. Fong Beibei wasn't interested in this. She was calculating Poplar Fruit's remaining money. You bought that house for 3 million, and you spent 2 million on the Miao village. At least that much. Fong Beibei said confidently. There might be some expenses, but I estimate that you only have a little more than $1 million left. You can even calculate that. Poplar Fruit took out his mobile phone and looked at the text message from the bank, exclaiming. In terms of calculating ability, Fong Beibei was hundreds of miles ahead of Poplar Fruit. Let me tell you. Fong Beibei pulled Kiki's right arm and scratched it like a fortune cat. However, the little girl couldn't sit still and struggled to jump down. She can't stay still after going out for a while, Poplar Fruit complained. It's the same when she's in the car. She always wants to run out to play. She's a child. Of course she's like that. Fong Beibei laughed. Do you dare say that when you were a child, when your mother told you to sit on the stool and do your homework, you wouldn't secretly get up to take a look at the TV? When I was a child, I didn't have a TV at home. Poplar Fruit was very honest. I'm just giving you an example. Fong Beibei rolled her eyes at him and said angrily. I'll give you this. Fong Beibei jumped up from the sofa and ran to the desk. She picked up her small bag and took out a wallet. She opened the zipper and took out a card and handed it to Poplar Fruit. The card looked very familiar. It was exactly the same as Poplar Fruit's card. Wasn't it the card that Poplar Fruit gave to Fong Beibei after returning from America? Why are you giving it to me? Poplar Fruit asked superfluously. Don't you want to do distance education? The remaining money is definitely not enough. Besides, you're going abroad. If you don't bring some money, you'll be looked down upon by others. Fong Beibei said generously. After you gave me this card, I haven't used it. No, I don't want it. Poplar Fruit shook his head firmly and said. After 2 months, the money will be earned back. You can keep the money for yourself. You're going abroad too. Buy yourself something you like. How could he take a woman's money? Poplar Fruit was not very traditional. However, in China, even in modern society, men were the ones paying for things. How could a woman give a man a bank card? I don't know how to use this card even if I keep it. Fong Beibei pushed Poplar Fruit and advised him not to be stubborn. Why don't I do something nice for you? Oh right, I'm not asking you to spend it. Fong Beibei waved her small fist. Compared to Poplar Fruit, it was indeed small. She smiled and said, if I find out that you're spending it on alcohol and women, I won't forgive you. It was not a threat at all. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and took it. Then he took out his own card and put it in Fong Beibei's hand. He said seriously, well, I'll keep it for you. You can use this card. Going abroad always costs money. Fong Beibei did not stand on ceremony with him. She took it graciously. Without wearing slippers, she tiptoed to her small bag and put it away. She looked very happy. Poplar Fruit felt Beibei's trust, which made him feel a little touched. At the same time, he repeated the promise he had just made in his heart. If you don't betray me, I won't betray you. This principle was correct. However, the atmosphere that should have been pink and ambiguous was turned into a solemn ceremony by 2 serious guys. He was drunk. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 648. It's getting late, I have to go back. Fong Beibei looked at her watch, stood up and said. Unknowingly, it was already past 10 o'clock. Kiki had already fallen asleep on the sofa. Poplar Fruit just carried her back to the bedroom. If Kiki didn't fall asleep, Poplar Fruit could let Kiki act coquettishly and make Fong Beibei stay. Even if Fong Beibei stayed, Poplar Fruit wouldn't do anything. But isn't it enough to be with the person you like? Is there anyone in the dormitory yet? Poplar Fruit also stood up and asked with concern. Shanshan will come back next Tuesday. She's the earliest. Fong Beibei said. Next Wednesday, the new students will enter the school. She's here to be a volunteer, right? Poplar Fruit keenly grasped the key point. He was an experienced person, but he knew that except for these diligent volunteers, no one would be willing to come early. It's already good to be able to come back on the last day of registration. Fong Beibei nodded. Her eyes turned, looked at Poplar Fruit and said, Uncle, don't tell me you want Shanshan to welcome you? Although you're also a new student, you're more familiar with the school than any of us. You can't bully Shanshan. Why would I? Poplar Fruit laughed. I just think that you're the only one in the dormitory. I'm worried that you'll be scared when you go back. Then what should I do? I can't live here, right? Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit. Her long eyelashes flickered on her bright eyes. Avoiding Fong Beibei's sight, Poplar Fruit said shamelessly, Sure, as long as you don't mind. After saying that, he felt a little frivolous and quickly added, What I mean is, you can sleep in the bedroom. I'll just make a bed in the living room. No need, Fong Beibei said with a smile. I'd better go back. My clothes are still in the dormitory. Thank you, uncle. I know you're a good person. Poplar Fruit was stunned. He rubbed his index finger with his left thumb. He was given the good guy card just like that? Something's not right. Isn't this the wrong choice of words? Regardless of whether he was right or wrong, Poplar Fruit's confidence collapsed for the time being. I'm leaving. Fong Beibei saw that Poplar Fruit didn't respond. She waved her hand and walked towards the door with her small bag. Let me send you off. Poplar Fruit was anxious and quickly followed. It's only 2 steps. Fong Beibei walked in front. Although she said that, her face was full of smiles. She didn't have the slightest intention of refusing. It was past 10 o'clock. It was the busiest time of the night market outside Higashiyama University's Little North Gate. After going downstairs and leaving the teacher's dormitory, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei felt the crowd. Not only was it noisy, but there was also a wave of heat from the crowd. This night market was opened in a small alley behind the Little North Gate for the convenience of the students. The alley was already very narrow. The shops were trying their best to move the chairs outwards. There were also all kinds of mobile stalls in the middle of the road. As a result, some places were so crowded that only 3 people could walk sideways. Poplar Fruit naturally walked in front to open the path for Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei also followed behind Poplar Fruit, tightly holding onto the corner of Poplar Fruit's shirt. However, there were still too many people. At this time, the students who came to the university early in the morning all came here to eat supper. They were preparing to go back and fight another 500 rounds at night. Therefore, Fong Beibei was still pushed around by the crowd. Poplar Fruit was strong. He used one arm to help Fong Beibei block the crowd, and Fong Beibei squeezed into Poplar Fruit's arms. Poplar Fruit's arm was actually just a prop, but no matter how you looked at it, the two of them were still hugging each other. Fortunately, this scene didn't last long. Poplar Fruit walked through the alley with Fong Beibei, and then entered the university through the Little North Gate. The crowd suddenly decreased. So comfortable. The cool night breeze blew, and the stuffy heat brought by the barbecue stall, and the crowd was finally swept away. Fong Beibei also jumped out of Poplar Fruit's arms, one hand holding a small bag, the other hand raised high, and was very happy in front. Poplar Fruit stood quietly behind, and didn't participate in Fong Beibei's cheers. He just silently looked at the young girl in front of him. Just like her lively and kind personality, Fong Beibei had a beauty that was different from other girls, and also deeply attracted Poplar Fruit. However, Poplar Fruit was a little hesitant today. He didn't know why, but maybe it was because of what Fong Beibei just said. I know you are a good person. Fong Beibei suddenly turned her head, and found Poplar Fruit standing alone behind her in a daze. She curiously walked over. Being sensitive, she immediately sensed the oppressive aura around Poplar Fruit. Fong Beibei frowned slightly and asked, Hey uncle, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. I was just thinking about something. Poplar Fruit was awakened by Fong Beibei's shout. He smiled and recovered his usual amiable smile, and walked over to Fong Beibei. Nothing? How could it be nothing? Fong Beibei could see that there was something wrong with the conflicted look on his face just now. In fact, Poplar Fruit was indeed fine. He just had some thoughts, but when he saw Fong Beibei's reflection under the light, Poplar Fruit thought it through. Good things come with setbacks, I can't be impatient. Therefore, Poplar Fruit returned to normal, and cheerfully told Fong Beibei about the interesting things that happened on this campus, when he was still a student. The more natural Poplar Fruit acted, the more uneasy Fong Beibei felt. Fong Beibei didn't even listen to what Poplar Fruit said. She felt that Poplar Fruit's smile was forced, and that he would disappear on the uneven campus road when he turned around. Poplar Fruit was overthinking things. and now Fong Beibei was overthinking things. Often, these coincidences would trigger some wonderful chemical reactions. Like now, Fong Beibei bit her lower lip, lowered her head, and followed Poplar Fruit to the right. What's wrong? Why are you unhappy? Poplar Fruit also felt that Fong Beibei's mood wasn't right. He lowered his head and asked softly. Nothing. Fong Beibei reached out her left hand, pulled Poplar Fruit's right hand over, and hugged it naturally. Poplar Fruit's heart suddenly thumped. He wanted to laugh because the happiness in his heart was about to erupt. However, he didn't dare to laugh, afraid that his exaggerated expression would scare Fong Beibei. Poplar Fruit's expression was a bit distorted because he didn't control his expression well. However, Fong Beibei didn't raise her head. Her face was flushed red, and she was too embarrassed to raise her head. Let's go. Fong Beibei stomped her feet and pouted. Oh! Overjoyed, Yang was thoughts short-circuited. It was as if she was being dragged by her as she walked towards Fong Beibei's dormitory in a daze. Next chapter. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Carrot? Carrot asterisk. Chapter 649. With Fong Beibei hugging his arm, Poplar Fruit was so happy that he almost fainted. But time seemed to pass very quickly. In the blink of an eye, Fong Beibei's dormitory was right in front of them. When they got here, there were very few people around. No, it should be said that there was no one around. Other than the dim light at the entrance of the corridor, the surroundings were pitch black. It was so quiet that even the sound of cicadas seemed to be very far away. Standing on the small path, if they continued to walk forward, they would reach the dormitory door. The two of them stopped at the same time. Poplar Fruit lowered his head and looked at Fong Beibei's fragrant and soft long hair, as well as her round and jade-like ears under the dim light. Poplar Fruit's heart couldn't help but beat faster. Uncle, I have to go back. Fong Beibei raised her head. Her eyes revealed a rare gentleness when she looked at Poplar Fruit. She hugged Poplar Fruit's arm and gently shook it. But she didn't have any intention of letting go. Poplar Fruit was still in a daze. Because the summer shirt was short and thin, Poplar Fruit could clearly feel the cool and soft touch on his arm. He absent-mindedly nodded and said, "Okay." Fong Beibei then gently let go of Poplar Fruit's arm and smiled sweetly. Poplar Fruit was in a daze again. It was as if the world in his eyes was covered with blooming flowers. "We're really leaving." Fong Beibei put her hands behind her back and cheerfully tiptoed. Poplar Fruit didn't move. He just stood there with a silly smile. Uncle became stupid. Giggling in her heart, Fong Beibei turned around and walked towards the dormitory. She thought, took 2 steps forward and looked at Poplar Fruit's silly look. The moment Fong Beibei turned around, Poplar Fruit's mind suddenly became clear. It was as if he had never been so clear before. He didn't think twice. He took a big step forward and grabbed Fong Beibei's hand. Wait! Poplar Fruit seemed to have used up all his courage. And that moment of clarity also burned away all his wisdom. His mouth became very clumsy. Beibei, Beibei, I have something to say to you. Fong Beibei stopped. She hesitantly and slowly turned around. In the shadow, Fong Beibei couldn't see her face clearly, but she knew that her cheeks were as hot as a boiled egg. Fong Beibei seemed to have a premonition of what was going to happen next, but at this time, she had lost her instinct to think. She couldn't control her beating heart at all. Beibei. Poplar Fruit swallowed his saliva. Looking at Fong Beibei's lowered head, he was very nervous. Fong Beibei raised her head and met Poplar Fruit's fiery eyes. She looked away like a frightened rabbit. Poplar Fruit said incoherently. Last time, didn't you say that the probation period would be 2 months? 2 months have passed. Fong Beibei lowered her head and looked at her shoes. Compared with Poplar Fruit's big feet, they seemed to be much smaller. Fong Beibei didn't respond, so Poplar Fruit had to continue. I didn't understand before, but now I understand. I have been thinking about it every day for the past 2 months, and I finally understand that I like you. The one I like is you. It has nothing to do with Kiki. No, I also like you very much when you are with Kiki. It's just that the more important reason is that I like you. And I like being with you. Poplar Fruit stuttered. His words were a mess, and he couldn't find any logic at all. This confession was far worse than the one 2 months ago. Poplar Fruit wanted to slap himself twice. He didn't prepare anything and spoke so rashly. However, he still had to finish what he wanted to say. Poplar Fruit lowered his voice, as if he was afraid that he would disturb the beauty if he spoke too loudly. Bebe, I have already thought it through. I like you. Now can you? Are you willing to be my girlfriend now? Fong Bebe lowered her head, so Poplar Fruit couldn't see her expression clearly. However, after he finished speaking, Fong Bebe still didn't move and didn't respond. Poplar Fruit only felt that his heart gradually sank from the anxiety of anticipation to the bitterness of disappointment. Am I too anxious? Poplar Fruit began to reflect on himself. It seemed like Poplar Fruit recalled what Fong Bebe had said before he came out. Uncle, I know that you are a good person. Maybe she still wasn't ready to accept him. Poplar Fruit felt a little bitter in his mouth. However, looking at Fong Bebe's thin shoulders, Poplar Fruit's heart floated again, as if the soft part of his heart had been touched. Okay. Fong Bebe's left hand, which was held by Poplar Fruit, moved slightly. Her other soft hand also closed, holding Poplar Fruit's fingers and playing with them like a child. It's okay. It's okay if you refuse. Don't feel burdened. I haven't done well enough. I will continue to work hard. Poplar Fruit was immersed in his own reflection, so he didn't pay attention to Fong Bebe's words. As soon as Fong Bebe spoke, Poplar Fruit comforted her as if it was a conditioned reflex. The more Fong Bebe listened, the more she felt that something was amiss. She raised her head, and the shy look on her face disappeared without a trace. She pinched Yongguo's finger with her right hand, interrupting his nagging. She said angrily, "Hey, what are you talking about?" Ha! Poplar Fruit blinked and didn't respond. However, in the end, he still had the gift of photographic memory. Yongguo slightly retraced his memory. His mouth was wide open, and he looked at Fong Bebe in disbelief. Her cheeks were flushed, and she was especially charming. You're saying that you've agreed?" Poplar Fruit's heart beat violently again. There was a kind of ecstasy that seemed to erupt from the deepest part of his heart, rushing all the way to the top of his head. If you didn't hear it, then forget it, Fong Bebe said angrily. However, her tone betrayed her expression. That light tone didn't sound like she was angry at all. Instead, it sounded like she was acting coquettishly with her boyfriend. Fong Bebe's hand was still holding Poplar Fruit's hand. However, the current position was more like she was holding onto Poplar Fruit's big hand, and not being passively held by Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit's big hand moved slightly, and with just a pinch of his fingers, Fong Bebe's petite hand was completely held in his own palm. His thick big palm clenched and held tightly. Of course, Poplar Fruit still paid attention to his own strength, and didn't let Fong Bebe feel any discomfort. How could that be? I heard it, of course I heard it. You can't go back on your words. Poplar Fruit lowered his head to look at Fong Bebe, and said with a grin, Uncle, are you especially happy, especially proud? Fong Bebe pulled her hand out, tiptoed, and suddenly grabbed Poplar Fruit's ear, and said with a pout. Poplar Fruit didn't dodge, although Fong Bebe's speed wasn't fast at all in his eyes. He let Fong Bebe grab onto his ear, and then looked at Fong Bebe in a daze. Fong Bebe wasn't as tall as Poplar Fruit even when she tiptoed, so it was a little difficult for her to grab onto Poplar Fruit's ear. The distance between the two was a little close. From Poplar Fruit's angle, he could see Fong Bebe's soft little mouth, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 650. Fong Bebe's lips were beautiful. They were as small as cherries and as light as clouds. Even though the lighting wasn't good, Poplar Fruit could still feel the softness and tenderness of her lips. The moonlight was like water, but it couldn't extinguish the fire burning in his heart. A beauty was like a flower, in full bloom. May you be happy, may you adore, may you pluck. Not knowing where the courage came from, Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Bebe's pouting lips and couldn't help but move closer. Fong Bebe was still waiting for Poplar Fruit to refute her words, so that they could continue fooling around. In the end, she suddenly realized that Poplar Fruit's face was magnified in her eyes. It was dark, so Fong Beibei couldn't see very clearly. She didn't know what happened to Poplar Fruit, but she was really shocked and subconsciously turned her head. Before she could put down her hands that were grabbing onto Poplar Fruit's ears, Fong Beibei felt a warm touch on her face. A man's lips weren't as soft as a woman's. They were more or less rough, but Fong Beibei didn't notice. What she noticed was that Poplar Fruit's long breath moved the fine hairs on her face. It was very itchy and very fleeting. It was enough to make Fong Beibei's mind go blank in an instant. He didn't kiss those cherry lips as he imagined, but Poplar Fruit felt the softness and smoothness of Fong Beibei's cheeks. The most seductive thing was the faint scent of green apples. It was like a fragrance. Hair, skin, body. Poplar Fruit couldn't find where the scent came from. In any case, he was a little drunk. Fong Beibei grabbed Poplar Fruit's ears and forcefully lifted Poplar Fruit's head. Her shy look was very cute. The pain from his ears made Poplar Fruit realize how rash his actions were. "Uncle, you really got carried away," Fong Beibei angrily said. You can't be like this." I was wrong. Poplar Fruit honestly admitted his mistake. He lowered his head to make it easier for Fong Beibei to grab him. "Luckily I dodged quickly, or else you would have succeeded." I already said you're a weird uncle." Fong Beibei's anger actually only flashed. She wasn't angry. "Yes, I was wrong." Poplar Fruit lowered his head and sincerely admitted his mistake. His heart was still hanging. He already did something wrong. He was worried that if he said something wrong again, Fong Beibei would be angry and divorce her new boyfriend. Fong Beibei felt that she used too much strength in her hands. She slightly loosened her grip and helped Poplar Fruit to rub it. She asked with concern, "Does it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt." Poplar Fruit looked up with a smile in his eyes. "Don't laugh." Putting down her hand, Fong Beibei unhappily poked Poplar Fruit's waist and said, "I haven't punished you yet." Poplar Fruit shamelessly reached out and put Fong Beibei's hand in his palm. He also saw that Fong Beibei was playing around. Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit's movements, but she didn't pull her hand back. She just gently moved her hand to a more comfortable position. She purposely pouted and said as if she was panting with anger, "Weird uncle, you're too bad. I want to set 3 rules with you." "Okay, let alone 3 rules. I'll listen to you even if it's 30 rules." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "It's too weird standing here. Let's go for a walk?" Poplar Fruit suggested. "I haven't taken a walk with you in a long time." Fong Beibei didn't object. She was pulled by Poplar Fruit like a docile little lamb. However, this was based on the premise that they didn't hear their conversation. Although Fong Beibei was pulled by Poplar Fruit's hand and seemed to follow his every step in the content of their conversation, Fong Beibei was completely in charge, while Poplar Fruit was completely in charge. The main reason was that Fong Beibei didn't go overboard. Fong Beibei wasn't like other girls who said things like, first, a girlfriend is always right, and second, if it's wrong, please refer to the first rule. Fong Beibei's 3 rules were just to prevent Poplar Fruit from crossing the line. In this aspect, Fong Beibei was still very conservative. Like today, you have to get my permission, understand? You can't suddenly attack, otherwise I'll ignore you. Poplar Fruit heard Song Jiwen mention the term third base, and Fong Beibei's boundary just happened to be beyond the first base. Fong Beibei's meaning was that holding hands was okay, but to go further, he had to continue the inspection and get her permission. "How long will the inspection be?" Poplar Fruit asked expectantly. 2 months? Dream on. Fong Beibei rolled her eyes at him and said with a smile, "Don't think that you're smart. You went abroad at the beginning of next month, and then you came back almost a month later. This time, you skipped 50% of the time. Then how long did you say?" Poplar Fruit was very straightforward after being exposed. Fong Beibei rolled her eyes and smiled slyly. "I'm not telling you. It depends on your performance." "Okay. I will definitely perform well to redeem myself." Poplar Fruit held Fong Beibei's hand and raised it, looking very motivated. "Hey, what? You're so enthusiastic about this," Fong Beibei said angrily. "Men are really animals who think with their lower body." Poplar Fruit opened his mouth awkwardly, not knowing how to refute. "Uncle." Fong Beibei suddenly lowered her head and called out softly. Her fingers moved slightly, passing through the gaps between Poplar Fruit's fingers, and their fingers intertwined. Poplar Fruit's heart trembled. There was a strange feeling. It was not a romantic feeling, but a deep sense of pity. He could not explain why. Maybe it was telepathy? He stood together with Fong Beibei and held her hand tightly, as if he wanted to wrap his hands around Fong Beibei. He asked softly, "What's wrong?" Fong Beibei gently leaned on Poplar Fruit's arm and raised her head. Her eyes were soft, like spring water that had just melted in spring. There was deep affection, but also fluctuating and hesitating emotions. She said softly, "Uncle, I know you're good to me, and I like it very much. But I'm scared." Fong Beibei held up her left hand and looked at their intertwined fingers in front of her eyes. Then she said in a trembling voice, "I'm scared that this is just a beautiful dream. When I wake up, there will be nothing left. You won't leave me, right?" Fong Beibei raised her head and looked at Poplar Fruit again. This time, there was no other expression on her face except for the worry and fear in her heart. He did not know why Fong Beibei felt so insecure. Maybe it was related to her previous relationship. Fong Beibei did not talk about it, and Poplar Fruit did not ask, but Lin Xingshan had mentioned it before. Poplar Fruit really did not care about the past. Just like Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit rarely thought about his first love for more than 4 years. "I will always be by your side," Poplar Fruit said softly as he held Fong Beibei's hand tightly and pulled her into his arms. "Protect your future." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 651. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's relationship had a huge breakthrough tonight. The two of them had been cuddling on the stone bench for more than an hour without noticing the passage of time. In fact, it was not difficult to understand. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei had reached this point naturally. Long before Poplar Fruit's first confession, the relationship between the two of them had not stopped at the stage of friends. Even when Poplar Fruit's confession was rejected, it was because of Poplar Fruit's low EQ and Fong Beibei's lack of security. If it had been a boy without children or a normal girl, they would have been able to get along with each other for a few months. They would have already succeeded in holding hands. After that, it was the 2-month probation period that Fong Beibei had mentioned. At first, it was not called a probation period. Fong Beibei wanted Poplar Fruit and herself to be separated for a period of time. They would both calm down and seriously consider whether they really liked each other. Of course, the effect was not obvious. First of all, Poplar Fruit liked Fong Beibei. This kind of liking had a certain relationship with Kiki, but it was not because of Kiki. When he first met Fong Beibei, it was because of a rush of excitement. When they met again at the stray dog rescue station, Poplar Fruit remembered Fong Beibei's kindness in his heart. Although Poplar Fruit was a little confused, causing his first confession to fail, after that he really understood his own feelings. Therefore, when Poplar Fruit was in Yangcheng, whenever he had the chance, he would find all kinds of excuses to call Fong Beibei. He even used the matter of investing in Ledong to look for her. Fong Beibei did not object. Her feelings for Poplar Fruit were the same. She liked Poplar Fruit, but she was worried that this seemingly beautiful love would die in the future. She was very afraid. She was so afraid that when she saw Poplar Fruit's confession, she was terrified. Since they both liked each other, Fong Beibei had called Poplar Fruit many times in the past 2 months. Sometimes, when the phone bill was almost out, she would charge the money a day in advance for long-distance and roaming calls. Although they did not meet, the relationship between Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei had continued to warm. It could be said that they were just in name. Even they themselves did not realize that their recognition and familiarity with each other had long surpassed that of an ordinary couple. Fong Beibei's unintentional good person card was the beginning of tonight's big change. She boldly hugged Poplar Fruit's arm was the catalyst for Poplar Fruit's sudden courage. If Poplar Fruit did not suddenly confess, the two of them might still be together. But according to the two's temperament when it came to relationships, it would probably take another 1 or 2 months. Don't forget that Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei were both going abroad next month. Fortunately, although there were some misunderstandings, Poplar Fruit still succeeded in confessing. Because of a few months of brewing, the two of them had reached the time to explode. After holding hands, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei did not experience the shy process of not knowing how to face each other. They were too familiar with each other and did not need to get used to each other's existence. Just like now, sitting on the stone bench, leaning on each other, talking about each other's daily lives as usual. Of course, it was not like they had skipped the passionate love and directly entered the ordinary companionship. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei were a couple. They could hold hands and hug more intimately than before, care for each other more sweetly than before, and talk more sweetly than before. They could even look at each other with their eyes to communicate their love. This was a new experience for Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei, and they never got tired of it. Mentally, they forgot the time, but their bodies still remembered. Fong Beibei could not help but yawn. Poplar Fruit held her hand and took out his phone with his left hand. He glanced at it and found that it was almost 12 o'clock. Close the dormitory door, Poplar Fruit said in surprise. Oh, Fong Beibei jumped up and pouted. It's so late. What should we do if there's no hot water in the dormitory? Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, Why don't you come to my place to take a bath? Fong Beibei opened her eyes wide and looked at Yanghua. The corners of her mouth curled up. She giggled and said, Uncle, are you thinking of something bad again? No, I'm really not. Poplar Fruit raised his left hand and swore. He really did not think too much. He just cared about his girlfriend. Poplar Fruit had dated Lu Yunram before, so he knew that girls were different from boys. Boys could take cold showers even in very cold weather, but most girls, needed hot water to take a bath, especially at the most special time of the month. If I go to your place to take a bath, I won't be able to come back. The door is closed. Fong Beibei calculated the time and shook her head. Then you can sleep at my place. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, I'll sleep on the sofa. Uncle, you just wanted to kiss me secretly. You've already exposed your naughty nature. Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit with a questioning gaze and said angrily, Tell me, are you thinking of doing something bad? How am I naughty? Poplar Fruit said anxiously. Didn't I just promise you? I won't do anything to make you feel uncomfortable. Besides, I just saw that there are not many people in your dormitory. Poplar Fruit said sincerely. There are only 1 or 2 dormitory rooms on the first floor with lights on. It looks gloomy. I'm worried about you living there. But I'm worried about you if I go to your place. Fong Beibei pouted and muttered. She was also a little moved. Girls were still afraid of being alone in an empty dormitory. When she opened the door, she could only see the dark air. How can that be? In this world, I'm the one who will not hurt you. I swear. You have to believe me. Poplar Fruit pulled Fong Beibei's hand and said seriously, If you're still worried, you can lock the door before you go to bed. But, you're going to sleep on the sofa. Fong Beibei felt Poplar Fruit's sincerity. She hesitated for a moment and said, Seems like I've convinced her a little. Poplar Fruit was in a good mood. He smiled and said, You don't have to worry about me at all. I have no problem sleeping on the sofa. I've lived in such a harsh environment in Guishan for half a month. Fong Beibei looked into Poplar Fruit's eyes. She could only see the depth of the starry sky, without a trace of impurity. Just like his palm, she could not help but want to rely on and trust him. Don't you have a folding bed over there? Fong Beibei shook Poplar Fruit's arm and said, You can move in tomorrow. You don't have to sleep on the sofa anymore. Huh? What do you mean? Fong Beibei's thoughts jumped. Poplar Fruit asked in confusion. You can guess what I mean. Fong Beibei smiled. She let go of Poplar Fruit's arm and ran forward happily. I'll go back and move my things first. Looking for monthly votes. Looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 652. Afraid that the smell of his sweat would smell Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit took a step back and said with a smile, I went to the school to run 2 laps and practice my martial arts. I haven't practiced driving for a few days, so I feel uncomfortable all over. Actually, running didn't improve Poplar Fruit's martial arts, so much so that he wouldn't feel tired even if he ran 2 more laps around the school. The reason why he had to run was because Poplar Fruit wanted to find a suitable place to practice his swordsmanship. After carrying the Meowdao back, Poplar Fruit had already put it on the shelf, so this wouldn't do. You bought breakfast? Fong Beibei looked at the plastic bag in Poplar Fruit's hand in surprise. Yes, I bought 2 sets of rice noodle rolls, 2 sets of scallop lean meat congee and some buns. Poplar Fruit smiled. The rice noodle rolls and congee were bought for Fong Beibei and Kiki. Poplar Fruit knew that Fong Beibei especially liked Yangqing's Bulla rice noodle rolls. It was different from the common drawer rice noodle rolls. Bulla rice noodle rolls were rarely seen in ordinary street shops, so he specially went to the tea house outside to buy them. As for buns, Poplar Fruit had a bigger appetite, so eating congee and rice noodle rolls wasn't enough to fill his stomach. Rice noodle rolls. Fong Beibei happily took the breakfast from Poplar Fruit's hands. The bedroom door wasn't closed properly, so Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's voices could be heard. At this moment Kiki, who was already in a light sleep, was awakened. The little girl had slept enough, but she still groaned in the morning. Poplar Fruit was about to go in, but Fong Beibei stopped him and said, "You go take a shower first. You're all sweaty. Let me do it." Poplar Fruit originally had short hair, which was cooler and more comfortable. However, in order to give the stylist more space, Ardell let Poplar Fruit grow his hair long. After 2 months without a haircut, the side of Poplar Fruit's hair was covering his ears. If he didn't wash it every day, his hair would look like a bird's nest after one night. When he came out, Fong Beibei was already sitting at the dining table with Kiki in her arms. The bowls and chopsticks were placed one by one. Kiki had already started eating, and Fong's porridge. The little girl's mouth was full of white rice. "Papa." Kiki wrapped her chest pocket and waved her hands, asking her father to eat breakfast together. "It's so delicious." Kiki tried hard to show an intoxicated look, which made Poplar Fruit laugh happily. Fong Beibei held the restless little girl down and scolded Poplar Fruit with some dissatisfaction. "You're really too much. You took Kiki out to play, but you didn't buy her anything delicious. Look, she ate half a bowl in one go. She's been craving it for a long time." Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly. He also knew that his daughter liked to eat Cantonese breakfast, especially lean pork porridge. It smelled delicious and tasted sweet. How could the plain tea of the Meow village compare with it? When Poplar Fruit was on the mountain, he usually let Kiki drink milk for breakfast. Now that she was back in Guangdong province, she could eat the familiar delicacies again. Naturally, Kiki was very excited. Kiki's appetite is much bigger than before. Don't underestimate her. Poplar Fruit smiled gently and sat next to her. He stretched out his hand and said, "Let me do it. Hurry up and eat, or the rice noodle rolls will be cold." "What about you?" Fong Beibei carried Kiki to Poplar Fruit. Halfway through, the little girl burped, and she laughed happily. "I can feed her while eating." Poplar Fruit patted Kiki's back gently. He scooped up half a spoon of porridge and fed it to Kiki, whose mouth was wide open. Then he put down the spoon, picked up a meat bun, stuffed it into his mouth, and finished it in a few bites. After breakfast, Fong Beibei received a text message from senior sister Shen Hong. After reading it, she said apologetically, "I'm going to discuss my homework with my team members." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "It just so happens that I'm going out too. Do you want me to send you off?" Fong Beibei pouted and said with a smile, "Yes. Anyway, your car is parked at school." Fong Beibei was changing clothes. Poplar Fruit sorted out some of the specialties he had brought back from Guishan province, and was going to bring them to Song Jiwen. Only then did he remember that the specialties he had bought with Song Jiwen before had been sent back. They were probably all with Song Jiwen, and he had to bring them back today. Poplar Fruit was going to take some time to visit a few friends and elders, such as his teacher, Chen Zongdai. He had to tell him what he had gained during this period of time. There was also brother Yang Zhengdong, who was going to visit him today. He was injured and didn't go to the Hmong village to play with him. Poplar Fruit planned to bring some local specialties for him to try. Poplar Fruit looked up and saw Fong Beibei, who had changed her clothes. He asked with a smile, "Beibei, do you want to bring some back for uncle and auntie?" Fong Beibei hesitated for a moment, then shook her head and said, "Forget it. They'll ask me all kinds of questions again if I bring them back. Afraid that Poplar Fruit would think too much, Fong Beibei added. It's not the time to let them know yet. Let's wait a little longer. How could Poplar Fruit bear a grudge because of this? He knew his own family well. Although he had never been married or divorced, having a child was almost the same in a sense. Most Chinese families were very reluctant to let their daughters be a stepmother. Not to mention that Fong Beibei was not confident. If Fong Beibei wanted Poplar Fruit to meet her parents now, Poplar Fruit himself would not be confident either. However, if Poplar Fruit really took on this responsibility, Poplar Fruit would never shirk it. Poplar Fruit stood up, walked up, and took Fong Beibei's hands. He smiled and comforted her. Well, I know what you mean. Don't worry, we'll take it slowly. I'll face it with you. I want to poop too. Give me, Papa, give me. Kiki ran out of nowhere. She was very envious of the way her father and sister Beibei held hands. She jumped up and down, wanting to have a share. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei smiled. Fong Beibei let go of Poplar Fruit's hand and picked up Kiki, kissing her and having a lot of fun. Poplar Fruit picked up Fong Beibei's small bag and followed them out. Before closing the door, he kicked back the poor gold that wanted to follow them. They were going to the hospital today, so it was not appropriate to take it with them. Kiki could not stay in the adult's arms for long. After going down the stairs, she struggled to get down and walk by herself. She even walked to the front and wanted to lead the way. Of course, the little girl seemed to have a little lack of sense of direction and needed her father to remind her. Fong Beibei naturally put her arm in Poplar Fruit's arm, and the two walked together intimately. From the back, Fong Beibei looked energetic in a long t-shirt and jeans, while Poplar Fruit was dressed casually. He was so steady that he did not look like a young man. It was a bit out of place, but the two did not care about it at all. When they were about to reach the dormitory, Fong Beibei suddenly asked, "Uncle, will you come back for dinner tonight?" Poplar Fruit looked down at her, and there was a warm smile in his eyes. He said, "Yes, but I'll cook tonight." Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 653. Although he spent a long time at home with Fong Beibei, when Poplar Fruit got in the car, it wasn't even 9 o'clock yet. He estimated that Song Jiwen hadn't woken up yet. According to Mosquito's nature, he usually played games all night on weekends, and then slept until late in the morning. Poplar Fruit planned to buy a computer. Considering that he had to prepare for the long-distance education, Poplar Fruit originally planned to buy a MacBook and a Windows desktop. The former could be used for himself, and the latter could be used for classes. However, after discussing with Kai Si-min, he decided not to buy the MacBook for the time being. In June, Apple launched a new model, the third-generation MacBook Pro with a Retina screen. The local scalpers had already priced it at a sky-high price. Kai Si-min recommended Poplar Fruit to go abroad to buy it. As for the desktop used for the long-distance education, Kai Si-min couldn't let Poplar Fruit mess around. She sent a list to Poplar Fruit with a lot of detailed equipment names. When these were combined, it could be used as a small server-level workstation. Therefore, Poplar Fruit was ready to drive to the top computer city. Although it wasn't as good as Zhongguancun in Beijing, Poplar Fruit believed that he could still buy the equipment on Kai Si-min's list. However, on the way, Poplar Fruit received a call from Song Jiwen. Lao Gua. It was strange. Song Jiwen's voice was very clear. He didn't sound like a person who slept in. "Have you arrived?" "No, I'm going to the top of the hill to buy a computer." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Mn, didn't you say that you would come over for lunch? Why are you going to the top of the hill?" Song Jiwen shouted. "Don't you like to sleep in?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "I've never seen you sleep so early," Song Jiwen said with some depression. "You think I don't want to? If it wasn't for that little pepper." "Song Jiwen, who are you calling little chili?" A loud roar came from the other end of the phone, followed by the sound of the door slamming shut. Chen Anlin's yelling and shouting could no longer be heard clearly. Song Jiwen said with lingering fear. "Did you hear that? This is the disaster you attracted. She has too much energy and comes to bother me every day." She doesn't even let me sleep in on weekends. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "It's okay, I believe you can handle her. Hee hee, settle your sister." Song Jiwen was speechless and cursed. "For the past half a month, I've been living in an abyss of suffering. Do you know what suffering is? Hurry up and take this annoying little chili away from me," Song Jiwen said with deep resentment, not allowing anyone to refute. "What about my computer?" Poplar Fruit asked. F***CK, if you're in a hurry, you can use my old computer first, Song Jiwen said. "If you go to the top of the hill now, you won't be able to make it back by noon. If you want to buy anything, I'll ask my friend to get it for you." Poplar Fruit thought about it. There were still many accessories on his list. If he went to the top of the hill, he wouldn't be able to get them all in a short time. He turned the car around and drove to Jinli Community. Although he hadn't been back for a long time, the community's security guard still recognized Poplar Fruit's car. Before he drove to the gate, he lifted the electric brake lever. Poplar Fruit pressed down the window and greeted him with a smile. Along the way, there were many aunties who greeted Poplar Fruit. Usually when Poplar Fruit took Kiki for a walk, he also exchanged experiences with them about raising children. Uncle Jean. Uncle Dao. After turning the corner, Poplar Fruit saw two familiar figures. He slowed down the car and hurriedly stuck his head out to shout. "Poplar Fruit?" The two uncles were wearing basketball uniforms and holding a basketball. It seemed like they had just come back from a workout. They smiled as they walked over and asked, "Why does it seem like we haven't seen you for a few months? Even that little brother of yours isn't coming. Without you guys, Gimli's stadium is our world." "Haha, uncle, you guys really don't let go of any opportunity to climb up the ladder," Poplar Fruit joked. "For the past 2 months, I went out for a meeting with my teacher. I wasn't in Yangcheng. I just came back. I'm not free today. How about tomorrow? I'll pay you guys a visit tomorrow night." "Sure. I'm free tomorrow night. Adao, come to my house too. Let's have some tea together. It's been a long time since we got together." Uncle Jean laughed. TSK old Jean, you're a busy man. You actually have some free time? Alright, I'll definitely go. Uncle Dao also reminded Poplar Fruit. "Poplar Fruit, you can't miss the appointment. You have to know that Uncle Jean has been promoted and made a fortune. There are people asking him out every day. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have the chance to have tea with him." "Dao, you're making things up about me again." Uncle Jean laughed. "Poplar Fruit, you care about these things." Poplar Fruit and the two uncles became good friends because of basketball. There was no exchange of benefits, and he wouldn't purposely curry favor with them. Thus, he only congratulated Uncle Jean before driving back to his building. "I'm here." Poplar Fruit parked his car and called in advance to greet Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin. "So what if you're here? Do you want me to pick you up?" Song Jiwen clamored. The hot-tempered Chen Anlin wasn't as impulsive as Song Jiwen. Instead, he answered in a very polite manner. It seemed that his family was very strict. When they went upstairs to their room, Song Jiwen jumped out first. Following behind him was Chen Anlin, who had already controlled his expression. It seemed that the two of them were fighting just now. "Hello, Kiki." Chen Anlin felt that she had taken over the place and was a little embarrassed to face Poplar Fruit. Thus, she changed her target. Clapping her hands, she smiled and wanted to hug Kiki. "I don't want to hug." Kiki raised her head proudly and ran past Chen Anlin's feet. She first patted her own door, but it was closed. Then, she ran into Song Jiwen's house. "Lao Gua, you're finally back. Hurry up and take her away. Take her away." Song Jiwen jumped behind Poplar Fruit, waved his hand and shouted, "What did I do to annoy you? Why are you so unhappy with me?" Chen Anlin raised her eyebrows and said angrily, "You didn't annoy me? You didn't let me sleep on weekends, and you called me more than 10 times a day. If I didn't come home on time, you would beat me up." Song Jiwen rattled on and on about Chen Anlin's crimes, as if he was the white-haired girl Sheer who had been tortured. "Poplar Fruit asked you to help me. Did you do it?" Chen Anlin curled her lips and retorted unhappily, "You only know how to play games every day. Can't you be a little more mature?" You said you would help me find a house, but there's been no news until now. I've been urging you every day, but have you ever listened to me? Now that poplar fruit is back, I still haven't found a place to live. Chun Anlin felt wronged, but she expressed her grievances with anger and violence. Yang Gua had no choice but to stand between the two of them, preventing them from fighting again. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 654. Poplar Fruit stood between the two of them and pulled Song Jiwen to the front. He smiled and said, "All right, don't quarrel. I'll say something fair. I'll criticize you first." Song Jiwen. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but use his teacher's tone. "I asked you to help Enlon find a place in Yangcheng that can be rented as a Tai Chi dojo. How can you delay for so long and refuse to help? Uncle Mosquito, can you turn on the TV for me? I want to watch TV." Kiki poked her head out, but she was short and no one could see her, so she could only call out coquettishly. Because Kiki had been secretly watching TV before, Poplar Fruit asked Song Jiwen to change the power socket to a higher position. Usually, it was disconnected so that the little girl wouldn't touch it. After Poplar Fruit gave permission, Song Jiwen returned to the room and helped Kiki turn on the TV. They didn't have to worry about changing the channel. Kiki was already sitting on the sofa with a large remote control and waiting. When they returned outside, Poplar Fruit continued. Enlon is a young girl who hasn't graduated yet. She has no relatives in Yangcheng, and only knows the two of us. Tell me, if we don't help her, who else can? I did help. How can a place like that be so easy to find? Song Jiwen muttered. Poplar Fruit didn't care what he muttered. He continued to scold. Besides, is what Enlon said wrong about you? I've actually wanted to say something about you for a long time, you know? You play games every day and sleep in during the holidays. You changed your clothes but you didn't wash them yourself and made me wash them. Chun Anlin added. Yes, you changed your clothes but didn't wash them yourself and made Enlon wash them. This is called sloppy. Poplar Fruit said casually. However, he thought about it and realized that something was wrong. Poplar Fruit widened his eyes and looked at Chun Anlin and Song Jiwen. With their relationship, shouldn't Chun Anlin be suppressing Song Jiwen? What? Song Jiwen complained. Is this my fault? Old Gua, you know that I put my clothes in the washing machine for a few days before I washed them. In the end, he was still lazy. However, Song Jiwen spoke righteously as if he was the one in the right. Song Jiwen turned his head and asked Chun Anlin. I didn't ask you to wash them, right? I changed them and put them on my balcony. You came over and took them away to wash. How can you blame me for this? Chun Anlin's face was a little red. She was far inferior to Song Jiwen in terms of language. She couldn't win against him. She raised her eyebrows and raised her hand to throw a tantrum. Anyway, you didn't wash your clothes in time. It's not hygienic. Look, Old Gua, where did you find this violent girl? She wants to hit people just because of a disagreement. Song Jiwen hid behind Poplar Fruit. With Poplar Fruit around, Chun Anlin wouldn't really hit him. He could finally speak up. Tell me who's right and who's wrong. Enlon isn't wrong. Poplar Fruit obviously had to take the girl's face into consideration. He smiled and said, Mosquito, you're not someone who lacks money. Why do you always save a few days' worth of clothes to wash? The girl was kind enough to help you wash your clothes. You should be grateful. He doesn't know how to be grateful. Chun Anlin complained. After the clothes were washed, I helped him dry them. Don't you think that's infuriating? Song Jiwen knew that he was in the wrong here, so he didn't continue to argue. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Enlon, Mosquito knows that he's wrong. Let's not pursue this topic anymore, okay? Mosquito, as a man in the future, you have to be more generous and give in to Enlon. I don't understand. You're always obedient to other girls. Why do you quarrel with Enlon every day? That's because I don't have any ulterior motives towards her. Song Jiwen smiled and said, Besides, I've never seen her as a woman. I don't think you're a man either. Chun Anlin raised her eyebrows and retorted. Poplar Fruit had a headache. He said, Well, even if that's the case, you still have to respect each other a little. Mosquito, You heard what I said just now. And in lawn, I'll also say a few words to you. We martial artists don't practice kung fu to beat people. If Mosquito does something wrong, you can tell him directly. If he doesn't listen, you can tell me. You know your kung fu. If you hit him, he'll feel a lot of pain. Who told him to deliberately make me angry? Chen Anlin pouted and stared at her feet. Hey, it's okay. Song Jiwen waved his hand generously and said, Anyway, Lao Guo is back. Let's find a house for you to move out of. Out of sight, out of mind. I won't provoke you. Chen Anlin opened her mouth and her eyes turned red. However, with her personality, this was all she could do. Although Chen Anlin felt a little wronged, she still straightened her neck and said, Let's move out. Who wants to see you every day? Song Jiwen immediately regretted his harsh words. However, his regret was not because of himself, but because he suddenly remembered that this little pepper was chasing after Poplar Fruit. Was it a little unfair to his brother to ask her to move out? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, What? Enlon won't move out. Mosquito, don't talk nonsense. You're always bullying girls. Yes, I'm wrong. Song Jiwen saw Poplar Fruit trying to smooth things over, and thought that Poplar Fruit wanted to keep Chen Anlin. He quickly bowed his head and admitted his mistake. He smiled and gave Poplar Fruit a look. Poplar Fruit had been good friends with him for more than 5 years. How could he not know what he was up to? He didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, Mosquito, don't get the wrong idea. I let Enlon stay here not because I have any feelings for her. Enlon, don't think too much. Poplar Fruit nodded at Chen Anlin embarrassedly and said, What I mean is you should stay here. I'm moving to a place near the school. I have an apartment there. What? Lao Guo, you're not staying here? Song Jiwen was shocked when he heard this. He knew that Poplar Fruit had an apartment near the school. It was convenient for him to go back to school for classes. However, it was far less comfortable than the high-end apartment in Jinli district. Why did he want to move out? Besides, why did he want to stay and leave him with this hot-tempered girl? Lao Guo, you can't abandon me. Song Jiwen shouted. Yeah, how can I do that? How can I do that? Chen Anlin shook his head and said, I'd better rent my own place. I'll just choose a place near the dojo. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, It's okay. I still have 1 year left on the lease. Anyway, I've already paid the rent. If you don't stay, you'll just leave it empty. You don't have to talk to me about money. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, I don't lack money. On the contrary, you've just started a business. You should keep your money. Opening a dojo costs a lot. No, Lao Guo. Why don't you stay? What's so good about the school? Song Jiwen couldn't help but ask. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 655. Song Jiwen questioned angrily. It was rare for him to ask about Chen Anlin's heart. She also felt strange. It didn't make sense to give her house to someone else for no reason. Chen Anlin nodded and looked at Poplar Fruit, waiting for his answer. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, The house in the school is not as comfortable as our apartment. But Poplar Fruit paused and kept them in suspense. I have good news to tell you first. What good news? Song Jiwen asked impatiently. Don't speak so fast. I'm in love. Poplar Fruit smiled brightly. Awkward silence. Song Jiwen was stunned, and Chen Anlin's baby face showed a confused expression. She didn't know what being in love had to do with moving to another place. What? You don't want to give any reaction? Poplar Fruit smiled. Song Jiwen finally came back to his senses. He asked in surprise, You have a girlfriend? Who? That little junior sister? The one who failed to confess before? Song Jiwen said and secretly glanced at Chen Anlin. However, Chen Anlin's confused and somewhat happy expression made him feel a little strange. Shouldn't she be jealous? It's her. But what do you mean by a failed confession? That's just Bebe. She still wants to wait and think about it again, okay? Poplar Fruit smiled. Damn. When did this happen? She said it first? Song Jiwen asked happily and excitedly. At this time, he had already thrown the unhappiness of Poplar Fruit abandoning him, and moving to another place to live to the back of his mind. He was full of happiness for his brother. In the past he was troubled by love because of Xiaoyao. However, he wasn't immersed in his own world. He had always been worried about his brother's relationship. When Poplar Fruit did not accept Duan Xueqing, Song Jiwen nagged for a long time. I was the one who opened my mouth last night. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and smiled. I confessed on impulse. I thought I would be rejected again. I didn't expect her to agree. This is such a good thing. Brother Poplar Fruit is going to treat us. Chen Anlin interrupted with a smile. That's right. Song Jiwen glanced at Chen Anlin with appreciation and said, You should also call out your sister-in-law. Let's get to know each other. I can treat you, but I can't ask her to come out today. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and smiled. Bebe is busy with the competition. Next time, I'll bring her out to meet you guys. Competition? What kind of competition? Chen Anlin asked curiously. A mathematics competition. It's an international competition. His wife is also a top student. Song Jiwen had learned from Poplar Fruit before. He smiled at Chen Anlin and said, How about it? Poplar Fruit is now taken. Do you regret it? Regret what? Chen Anlin asked inexplicably. I'm envious. Really? I said. What's the use of being envious? You should take the initiative. If you wait for Poplar Fruit to come back, it will be too late. Song Jiwen sighed. Poplar Fruit was still a little confused, but Chen Anlin understood. She shouted angrily. What? What are you thinking? When I said envious, I was referring to Poplar Fruit and sister-in-law's studies, okay? Poplar Fruit can study for a master's degree, and sister-in-law is so amazing. Unlike me, I was a special student in university, and my grades were so bad. Also, Chen Anlin pointed at Song Jiwen and said seriously, Don't think that everyone is as dirty as you. I only came to Yangqing for two purposes. First, to learn martial arts from Poplar Fruit. Second, I want to use my own ideas to open a Tai Chi dojo and prove to my family that my ideas are right. After she said that, the atmosphere became a little cold. Poplar Fruit could only come up and ease the atmosphere. He smiled and said, Okay, now that everything has been explained, let's not quarrel anymore. Enlan, you should stay here. Don't worry, Mosquito is a good person. Mosquito, you too, don't say things that provoke her. I believe that Enlan doesn't really want to hit you. If she was really a violent person, you would be lying in the hospital by now. Chen Anlin looked at Song Jiwen and didn't say anything. Sigh, okay, I apologize. Xiao. Enlan, what I said before was wrong. Please don't take it to heart. Song Jiwen cupped his hands and went down the stairs that Poplar Fruit gave him. Song Jiwen was actually a magnanimous person. Otherwise, Poplar Fruit wouldn't have been good friends with him for so many years. However, when facing Chen Anlin, Song Jiwen himself did not know why he kept trying to provoke her as if he had taken the wrong medicine. Chen Anlin smiled. Her childlike face that didn't match her age showed a mature generosity. She said softly, It's okay, I won't take it to heart. Poplar Fruit continued. Actually, Enlan, there's another reason why I asked you to stay here. To be honest, I really don't know much about site selection and management. On the other hand, Mosquito knows a lot of people and can help more than me. If you stay here, you can discuss anything with him. Mosquito, you're not deliberately avoiding it, are you? Okay, I don't need you to provoke me. Song Jiwen smiled and said. Enlan is also my friend. How can I not help? I really didn't have a good place before, but don't worry, I've already asked a few friends to help me ask. I believe there will be good news soon. Thank you, I'm sorry. I misunderstood before. Chen Anlin also bowed and said with some embarrassment. Chen Anlin was not tall, and her face was like a little girl's. Just now, she had bared her fangs and brandished her claws, wanting to beat someone up. At that time, she felt that there was no threat. Now that she bowed, it was as if the little maid had done something wrong. She looked especially pitiful. Song Jiwen blushed and waved his hand, saying, You don't have to apologize. I didn't make it clear to you. It was a happy ending. Poplar Fruit clapped his hands and said with a smile, Okay, let's get ready to eat. Let's go out to eat. It's my treat. However, Mosquito, come and help me move some things. Some clothes and Kiki's things need to be moved to the car. We'll bring them back tonight. Poplar Fruit actually had a lot of things to move. In addition to the clothes, he took Kiki's crib, the folding bed that he didn't use much before, and Kiki's many small toys, milk powder, and diapers. The books in his study room were still there for the time being. In fact, after reading them once, Poplar Fruit had completely memorized them. He only kept them for the purpose of collecting them. Now that there was no place to put them in the teacher's apartment, he would move them all over when he moved to a bigger house in the future. Then there was the computer. Poplar Fruit took the laptop that Song Jiwen had eliminated. Although it was bought 2 years ago, Song Jiwen used it to play games, and the configuration was very high. Even now, it was the mainstream configuration of netbooks. Poplar Fruit only used it for work, so it was definitely more than enough. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 656. Feng Beibei was a little annoyed. She started to regret not thinking things through yesterday, and forming a team with Senior Wang Di. This person really doesn't know when to stop. When the discussion started, Wang Di sat beside Feng Beibei excitedly. At this time, Feng Beibei didn't think much of it. It was a discussion, so they had to sit together to talk. Senior Shenhong sat on the other side of Feng Beibei. She looked at them with a complicated expression, but she didn't say anything. In fact, Feng Beibei didn't have a bad impression of this senior from the beginning. His results were among the top of the dozen people in Higashiyama University's preparation team. Moreover, he had also participated in an international competition. If she could form a team with him in the end, the chances of winning would be very high. Wang Di was considered a little handsome in a group of ugly science students. This made him very confident. It was said that he had had 2 girlfriends in his 3 years in university, but there were still many girls who flocked to him. Not to mention that Feng Beibei didn't consider him from the beginning. Even if she did, she would have excluded him after seeing him flirting with so many girls. No matter what, since they had become temporary teammates, they had to do their homework well this time. Feng Beibei wanted to perform well, so that she could enter the seeded team when the professors split up. However, as the discussion progressed, Feng Beibei's brows furrowed. Wang Di pretended to be discussing and kept moving closer to Feng Beibei. He was almost sticking to Feng Beibei. He even used the excuse of pointing out the SPSS operator on the computer to deliberately reach out and touch the back of Feng Beibei's hand. The first 2 times, Feng Beibei thought it was an accident, and she carefully avoided it. However, Wang Di was getting more and more daring. There was even one time when his hand almost covered Feng Beibei's hand. This obviously groping behavior made Feng Beibei feel disgusted. There were several times when she wanted to stand up and slap him, but there wasn't much time left for her homework. If she fell out with her teammates, she wouldn't be able to finish her homework this time. Therefore, Feng Beibei gritted her teeth and endured it for a while. Then, she made an excuse to go to the toilet. When she came back, she said to senior sister Shenhong, "Senior sister, why don't you go there? Let's switch positions. I'm not that familiar with SPSS yet." Shenhong had been watching the whole time, but Feng Beibei didn't say anything, and she didn't want to blame her classmate. Now that Feng Beibei made this request, Shenhong nodded with a smile. Wang Di kept winking at her, but Shenhong pretended not to see it. Shenhong sat over, and Wang Di behaved himself. Of course, Wang Di wouldn't touch Shenhong. Firstly, Wang Di wasn't interested in Shenhong. Secondly, Shenhong's temper was so fierce. If he dared to do that, Shenhong would definitely slap him on the spot. Finally, they could have a proper discussion. Feng Beibei happily gave herself a thumbs up in her heart. Feng Beibei was actually very good. In Higashiyama University, although she was a first-year student and the only first-year student to enter the preparation team for the competition, Feng Beibei's mathematical talent was very strong. In just a month of training, she was already at the level of a senior student. Of course, Feng Beibei also had a shortcoming. Her English was relatively poor. When she participated in the competition, She had to write a thesis. If no one in her team could write an English thesis well, then they wouldn't be able to get an award even if they completed it well. Now Fong Beibei didn't need to think about this problem because the homework this time didn't involve a thesis. It was purely problem-solving and modeling. The three of them really focused on the discussion. Their progress was very fast, especially Fong Beibei. She came up with a few constructive hypotheses and helped the senior brother and sister find an entry point for the problem. The next step was easy to deal with. With the hypotheses, they could start modeling. Fong Beibei thought that Wang Di would give up after being rejected. However, she didn't know that Wang Di wasn't as simple as poplar fruit. He was also considered an expert in playing with women. After failing once, not only was he not depressed, but he was also excitedly planning for a second time. During lunch, Fong Beibei pulled Shen Hong with the excuse that she had other things to do. She didn't accept Wang Di's invitation, and the two of them ran to another cafeteria. However, who knew that Wang Di wouldn't go away and came all the way here? He pretended not to know and walked over with a plate. He smiled and said, "Beibei, you're here too. Great, let's eat together." Wang Di didn't even look at the empty seat next to Shen Hong. He walked to Fong Beibei's side and put down the plate first. Then he prepared to pick up the bags that Fong Beibei and Shen Hong put on the seat next to Fong Beibei. "Come and sit here. Why are you touching our bags?" Shen Hong pointed at the empty seat on her left and said unhappily. Wang Di was thick-skinned. He put Fong Beibei and Shen Hong's bags on the seat further to the right, and then sat down. He smiled and said, "Shen Hong, we've been classmates for 3 years. Aren't you tired of sitting together every day? Also, our junior sister is so beautiful. Let me bask in her glory. Look, there are so many envious eyes around us." "It's a murderous gaze, right?" Shen Hong said sarcastically. "Be careful not to be slapped by Beibei's flower protection army when you go back tonight. I'll be a romantic ghost if I die under her skirt. Haha. For Beibei, I'm very brave." Wang Di self-righteously said some witty words. He thought that such domineering words would be able to move a pure girl like Fong Beibei's heart. However, Fong Beibei just buried her head in the food and ignored him. As he said that, Wang Di took out his phone and took a selfie with Fong Beibei. "Beibei!" Wang Di suddenly shouted. Fong Beibei reflexively raised her head. Her mouth was stuffed and she asked blankly, "What?" Wang Di had already put away his phone with satisfaction. He was going to post it on Weibo after dinner. Fong Beibei frowned and asked him for his phone to delete the photo. However, Wang Di refused. Fong Beibei also didn't want to snatch it. This way he wouldn't be able to take advantage of her. "I'm full." Without waiting for Wang Di to finish his first mouthful of food and continue talking nonsense, Fong Beibei suddenly stood up and looked at senior sister Shen Hong. Shen Hong looked at Fong Beibei's unfinished food and her own plate of sweet and sour tenderloin. She smiled bitterly, stood up, and said with a sigh, "I'm full too. I don't know why, but I don't have any appetite at all today. Senior brother, you eat slowly. I'll go for a walk with senior sister." Without giving Wang Di a chance to persuade her to stay, Fong Beibei took the plate and pulled Shen Hong to the entrance of the canteen. Clang! Shen Hong, who wanted to walk around to find another place to continue eating, saw that Fong Beibei had already poured the food in her hand. She smiled bitterly and shook her head. She also poured the food and walked out of the canteen with Fong Beibei, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 657. Great Aunt, because of you, I didn't even eat 2 mouthfuls of rice. Out of the cafeteria, Shen Hong pulled Fong Beibei's hand and rebuked. "I'm sorry, senior sister. How about I treat you to something else?" Fong Beibei said with an apologetic tone. Fong Beibei took Shen Hong to a cafe on campus and ordered 2 cups of coffee and 2 bamboo baskets of waffles. Girls don't have a big appetite, so waffles are enough for them. What's wrong with senior brother Wang Di today? Fong Beibei took a sip of coffee and complained to Shen Hong. "So annoying. He likes you." Shen Hong giggled and said, "He's just that kind of person. He's not serious at all. I've told you before. Who told you to team up with him?" "I didn't know he was so excessive." Fong Beibei shook her head and said, What should I do? We still have to finish discussing our homework. Just bear with it. Shenhong comforted. Don't worry, I'm here. But, do you know? Shenhong said with a smile. A lot of people in the class said that you two are a good match. You're so beautiful, and Wang Di is also quite handsome. Why don't you consider it? I heard from Old Wang that our modeling competition team had such a pair 2 years ago. You two are a golden couple. If you two are successful, Old Wang will definitely talk about you two every year. Senior sister. Fang Beibei angrily said. Don't talk nonsense. Looking at the smiling Shenhong, Fang Beibei hesitated for a moment and said, I already have a boyfriend. Shenhong was taken aback. She asked, You have a boyfriend? It can't be, right? I remember you told me before that you don't have one. During the holiday, when the training just started, Wang Di asked Shenhong to ask about Fang Beibei's situation. Fang Beibei told Shenhong that she didn't have a boyfriend. I just had one yesterday. Fang Beibei's face blushed and said shyly. Oh, look at your happy face. Shenhong tickled Fang Beibei's cheek and said with a grin. Quick, tell senior sister what's going on. Shenhong and Fang Beibei had a very good relationship. In just over a month, they had almost become best friends. Looking at her gossipy face, Fang Beibei covered her face and shook her head shyly. In the end, Shenhong urged her several times before Fang Beibei told her what happened yesterday. It's not romantic at all. Looks like you've liked him for a long time. Shenhong hit the nail on the head. Then she asked in a gossipy manner. Is he also from our school? Is he in the same grade as you? How old is he? What's his name? Do I know him? Aya. Fang Beibei said angrily, Senior sister, you have so many questions. How do you want me to answer? Answer me one by one. Shenhong urged. Fang Beibei could only give her a brief introduction of Poplar Fruit's situation. As she spoke, Shenhong responded with a fuss. Wow, senior brother. So you're into this. Unfortunately, our class is Wang Di, TSK. He's in graduate school. Or a translator. That must be very profitable. Let me tell you, I have a few senior sisters who are studying translation. They are all rich ladies. But they only studied for 2 years. Doesn't that mean he graduated before you graduated? Oh, he's studying for a PhD? That's not right. Is there a master's and a PhD in a foreign language school? The dean's disciple? No wonder he's so good. Wait, who is this Kiki you're talking about? Daughter? Daughter. Shenhong stared at Fang Beibei in shock. She couldn't say a word. She couldn't believe her ears. Her good friend's junior sister actually found a boyfriend with a child, although he was a single father. Sugar daddy? Shenhong looked at Fang Beibei with a strange expression. This sentence jumped out in her heart. Beibei. Shenhong held back for a while before saying, You might as well look for Wang Di. Fang Beibei frowned and anxiously cried, Senior sister, Poplar Fruit is a very good person. Fang Beibei explained to Shenhong for a while, saying a lot about Poplar Fruit's situation. Anyway, it's not what you think. Show me his photo. Shenhong still didn't believe it. She snatched Fang Beibei's phone and directly opened the photo album. In the end, Shenhong couldn't find it. There are no photos of him. Fang Beibei shook her head and said. She didn't like to take photos like Poplar Fruit. Moreover, before the two of them officially became a couple, there were a few photos of Poplar Fruit and Givenchy. She saved them on her computer and deleted them from her phone, worried that her family would find out. There are photos on his Weibo. Fang Beibei thought for a while, took the phone, opened Weibo, and found Poplar Fruit's Weibo. Kiki's father? Shenhong came over to take a look and commented. There are so many photos of children. His daughter looks quite cute. At least he's a caring man. Shenhong added in her heart. Most of Poplar Fruit's Weibo were photos of Kiki. Fang Beibei flipped through 2 pages before she found a photo of Poplar Fruit and Kiki. This photo was taken when they were traveling outside, and Kiki was the main character, while Poplar Fruit's face was shown. Wow, he's quite handsome. Wang Di is compared to him in an instant. Shenhong shouted as she grabbed the photo and took a closer look. Fang Beibei pursed her lips. She felt that Shen Hong comparing poplar fruit with Wang Di was an insult to poplar fruit. Besides, poplar fruit's selfie was completely to highlight Kiki. His appearance was still a little different from the real person. If they looked at the real person, he would be even more handsome. Shen Hong looked at some of poplar fruit's Weibo. From the content, poplar fruit was indeed a good man, just like what Fang Beibei said. She now believed 80% of it. When are you going to bring him out so that I can help you check him out? Shen Hong smiled and pushed Fang Beibei. What do I need to check him out for? Fang Beibei asked doubtfully. Don't think that you can protect him just because he's your boyfriend. You guys aren't married yet. Shen Hong laughed. Men nowadays are cunning. I don't want you to be deceived by bad men. He won't deceive me. Fang Beibei shook her head. She was too familiar with poplar fruit. Poplar fruit didn't hide the things that he usually did from her. Besides, that guy was usually a nerd and an otaku. He couldn't wait to love her. How could he be willing to deceive her? Looking at Fang Beibei's stubborn look, Shen Hong had to say, Okay. It's not checking him out. You have to bring him out for a meeting, right? You've seen senior sister's boyfriend. The one in your house, you have to treat him to a meal. Besides, if you bring him out for a walk, Wang Di won't pester you when he sees you. Shen Hong came up with an idea. He's very busy. I don't know if he's free. Fang Beibei hesitated. She remembered that poplar fruit seemed to be quite busy these days. If I ask him to come out, would he be willing? Fang Beibei muttered in her heart. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 658. After having lunch with Song Jiwen and the others, Poplar Fruit went to the military hospital. He asked for the address from big brother Yang Zhengdong. At first, he refused to give it to him because he didn't want Poplar Fruit to visit him, which made Poplar Fruit very surprised. Later, when Poplar Fruit brought up big brother He Wenjua, he obediently sent the address over. He Wenjua couldn't be counted on. When Poplar Fruit returned to Yangcheng, he called him, but his phone was turned off. It seemed that he had returned to the army. When he arrived at the hospital, Poplar Fruit found Yang Zhengdong's room. As soon as he entered the room, he couldn't help but laugh. Hey, didn't you say you wouldn't laugh at me? Yang Zhengdong shouted. How could he not laugh? He was wearing a patient's gown and lying on the bed. That's right, he was lying on his stomach and not sleeping. Not only that, he also had to raise his butt to prevent his heavily bandaged butt from touching other places and causing the wound to split open again. In this way, he had to put his head on the pillow. Kiki was being carried by her father. She was still sleepy at noon, but when she saw the scene in the ward, she became energetic. The little fellow was a child, so she pulled her father's neck and asked curiously, Papa, why is Uncle sleeping like this? In her mind, the scene that she saw in Song Jiwen's house in the morning on the Discovery Channel appeared. She giggled and said, It seems to be ostrich. The Discovery Channel was broadcasting a BBC program in English. The little fellow remembered the English pronunciation of an ostrich. Although she didn't pronounce it correctly, it was still considered very good. Ostrich. Poplar Fruit laughed. Ticking the head in the sand, with the head in the air? Ostrich? Burying their heads in the sand, and then exposing their buttocks? Poplar Fruit's explanation was a little complicated, but he gestured with his other hand, and Kiki understood. She nodded happily and shouted loudly, Carrot oh carrot yes. Poplar Fruit, are you doing this on purpose? You came here to make fun of me. Yang Zhengdong didn't understand, but he could see clearly. He shouted in shame and indignation. Haha, brother Zhengdong, don't be angry. I was just explaining to Kiki about the ostrich. It has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with you. Poplar Fruit laughed and walked over with the fruit basket. Poplar Fruit didn't mean to mock him. It was just a harmless joke with an old friend who hadn't seen each other for a long time. Yang Zhengdong also understood that Poplar Fruit was just trying to relieve his embarrassment. After putting down the fruit basket on the bedside table, Poplar Fruit also put Kiki on the ground. Then he found a few cushions and stuffed them under brother Yang Zhengdong's stomach, so that he could have a comfortable position to chat. I say, little girl, don't mess around. Uncle is in pain here. Yang Zhengdong's somewhat terrified voice came out. Of course, his tone was more joking. Poplar Fruit looked down and saw Kiki standing by the bed unknowingly. She clung to the edge of the white bedsheet and stared covetously at Yang Zhengdong's tightly wrapped buttocks. This ******* was really very different from ordinary people. It was a bit like a giant panda with a thick neck and a thick waist. Kiki pondered, as if she wanted to pat it. Of course, with Kiki's height, she definitely wouldn't be able to reach it. However, 2 months ago, this little girl was able to collude with that silly dog Jean Z to secretly open the door and run to Song Jiwen's house to watch TV. If Poplar Fruit didn't pay attention, who knows where she would move a stool and climb up. Poplar Fruit thought it was funny, but he still pulled Kiki away and said, "Kiki, you can only watch, you can't do anything, do you understand? Later, Dad will peel an apple for you to eat." Kiki reluctantly glanced at it twice, then pouted her little mouth and let go. Poplar Fruit found a chair and sat down. Kiki didn't sit, she leaned on her father's leg. Her eyes were a little sleepy, but she still stared at the big red Fuji apple in her father's hand. From time to time, she stuck out her pink little tongue and licked her lips. "How is brother's injury now?" Poplar Fruit asked while cutting the long apple skin with the knife. "It's a lot better. Yesterday when I changed the dressing, it said that the wound is healing. It should be fine in less than a month." Yang Zhengdong said. "Now it doesn't hurt that much. It's just itchy, from time to time it will come, but I can't scratch it. It's like 100 claws scratching my heart." Yang Zhengdong said frantically, "I'd rather die from the pain than be itchy like this. Bear with it for a while, and it will be over." Poplar Fruit comforted. While they were talking, Poplar Fruit finished peeling the first apple. He cut it, divided it into 4 parts, and dug out the core in the middle. He was not in a hurry to pass it to Kiki, who was about to drool. Instead, he washed her hands first. Poplar Fruit took a piece from the peeled apple and passed it to Kiki. Kiki was about to grab it and stuff it into her mouth. That sour, sweet and crunchy taste, she couldn't resist thinking about it. But her father didn't let go. She was stunned. The little fellow pouted her mouth and looked at her father in confusion. Poplar Fruit's eyes were smiling. He looked at his daughter and said, "Kiki, you can't eat it by yourself first. You have to give it to Uncle first." Letting go of his hand, Poplar Fruit gently pushed Kiki and said with a smile, "Go, give it to Uncle and say, 'Uncle, eat the apple.'" Kiki hesitated. Her small right hand held the apple. She looked at her father for a while, then looked at the tempting apple in her hand. What should she do? On one side was the apple that she had been waiting for a long time. She wanted to eat it so badly. She couldn't wait a moment longer. But on the other side was her father's request. She couldn't disobey her father's words. What should she do? Swallowing a mouthful of water, although Kiki was reluctant, she still pouted and turned to the bedside. She handed the apple to the uncle and said dryly, "Uncle, eat the apple." Yang Zhengdong smiled. He took the apple and said with a smile, "Thank you, Kiki." Yang Zhengdong knew that Poplar Fruit was educating Kiki, so he didn't refuse. Yang Zhengdong took a bite and said that it was delicious. Kiki stood there with tears in her eyes. She looked at the delicious apple that was just about to be eaten by someone else. "Come, Kiki." Poplar Fruit wouldn't let his daughter down. He smiled and waved at Kiki and said, "Come, this piece is yours." Kiki's face bloomed with a smile. She hurriedly ran over and took the apple. Holding it with both hands, she happily gnawed on it. Kiki's mouth wasn't big, so it was a bit strenuous for her to gnaw on the apple. However, it didn't stop her from leaving teeth marks and saliva on the apple. Poplar Fruit touched his daughter's little head and looked at her with appreciation. However, he didn't continue to say anything. Modesty made people happier than monopolizing it. Kiki might not understand this principle now. He would let her slowly experience it in some small things in life. Poplar Fruit understood that with Kiki's smart little head, she definitely wouldn't let him down. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 659. Brother Yang Zhengdong's injury wasn't very serious, And he had also passed the most uncomfortable period. When he had just finished the operation, he couldn't move and even had to be intubated. So Poplar Fruit accompanied him for a while, and then went home with Kiki. In the afternoon, Poplar Fruit also received a call from Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie was very happy to tell Poplar Fruit a piece of good news. Peng Yu would be the future president of their publishing house. Speaking of which, Peng Yu could be considered as an old member of Dongxin Publishing. If it weren't for the appearance of Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie, she might have stayed in the position of chief editor of Dongxin Publishing until she retired. However, the position of president given to her by Zheng Yujie rekindled Peng Yu's youthful passion, who didn't want to prove themselves. In terms of qualifications, achievements, and ability, Peng Yu was qualified to be the vice president or even the president of Dongxin Publishing. However, Dongxin was a large company controlled by the state, not a private company or a foreign company. It didn't mean that you could be the president just because you were talented. Peng Yu's background was still lacking, and this was almost an insurmountable moat. She was 50 years old this year, and in another 5 years, she would retire. Even if she felt that she still had energy, but in these 5 years, she couldn't see any hope for further progress. Moreover, if there was any trouble, she might not even be able to stay in a stable position until she retired. Previously, the second-generation official wanted to gain experience in Dongxin, and he was eyeing Peng Yu's position. At that time, Peng Yu was in danger, and she even thought that her good luck had come to an end. Fortunately, the official's son had other choices. Moreover, Deng Baoyan had also intervened at that time. That was how she managed to get through the ordeal safely. Peng Yu felt that she shouldn't wait for death. Moreover, she still had 5 years or even longer to challenge a higher position with abundant energy and prove her ability. There was a word on the internet that described her current wish: to prove her ability. Of course, Peng Yu had received many offers for the position of the president of a publishing house. If she wanted to leave, she would have left long ago. Why was only Zheng Yujie's proposal that moved her? That was because Zheng Yujie's suggestion for a publishing house was unprecedented. However, it was also Peng Yu's specialty. Peng Yu's greatest contribution to Dongxin was the introduction of foreign books for more than 20 years. This concept, she was the first one that year. The reason why Dongxin was able to stand out among the many publishing houses in China and become one of the top publishing groups was also because of their momentum in importing foreign books. Over the years, Peng Yu had a lot of dealings with foreign publishers, so she had a deep understanding of the situation abroad. This was exactly what Zheng Yujie lacked. Zheng Yujie's publishing house didn't lack anything, but she lacked a helmsman like Peng Yu. In the field of translation, Poplar Fruit was not inferior to anyone, and still had unfathomable potential. Moreover, he had a good relationship with the current largest translation trading platform in China, Cinda Translation. Through Cinda, Poplar Fruit could gather many of the best translators in the domestic translation industry to serve the publishing house. In the field of editing, Zheng Yujie was already a senior in the industry. She had the ability to be the chief editor, and in terms of leadership, she was not much worse than Peng Yu. However, Zheng Yujie was still young. If it was only her, she wouldn't be able to control the other deputy chief editors. Moreover, in terms of overall control, Zheng Yujie still lacked experience. More importantly, in the future, if they wanted to publish Chinese book translations abroad, they would definitely have to deal with the established publishers. In order to deal with them, they would need Peng Yu's leadership. As for the problem of money, Peng Yu didn't believe that it would be an obstacle for Zheng Yujie. On the surface, Zheng Yujie's aunt's company's market value was more than 20 billion. Everyone in Beijing knew that she had many hidden businesses, which were providing financial support for the Zheng family, which was walking on the road of revival. Zheng Yujie was her aunt's favorite child. How could Zheng Yujie not have a few $100 million to set up a publishing house? Although this is a field that few people have explored in China, maybe it's an opportunity, Peng Yu told herself. Although at her age she had to be cautious about job hopping. However, with this idea, after a few days of struggle, Peng Yu finally decided to accept Zheng Yujie's invitation. Peng Yu was a decisive person. After she made the decision, she started to go through the resignation procedures. Although a big group like Dongxin lacked talents like Peng Yu. After all, they didn't care about the company's benefits, right? The senior management were all on the political route. After Peng Yu left, it was equivalent to a big pit, which could be used to exchange for countless political benefits. Therefore, Peng Yu's resignation application was approved quickly. Around the middle of September, she would go down south with the Zheng family's funds in advance to prepare for the purchase of the publishing house and poaching people and other work. At the end of the year, Zheng Yujie would also leave Dongxin and blow the horn of war in one fell swoop. Teacher Peng Yu is really desperate. Poplar Fruit used the honorific title and sighed to Zheng Yujie. I'm also very hard-working, okay? Zheng Yujie complained. You don't know how many times I was interrogated by my mother after I went back to Beijing. Then I worked hard to get the investment from my aunt. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, It's okay. It's better to get the pain over with than to prolong the pain. You just have to endure this period of time. When you make some achievements, they won't dare to criticize you anymore. Then you have to help me quickly. I can't wait that long. Zheng Yujie changed into a coquettish tone. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Don't worry. I'm now doing the translation of some classic fantasy novels. When the publishing house opens, we will have our own main books. We will launch an English version first. Then we will strive for instant success. Oh right. Zheng Yujie whispered to Poplar Fruit. You can take a look at the valuable online novels first. Make a list for Aunt Pang. She will secretly buy the foreign copyright first. We can't wait for the news to spread and they will raise the price. In the phone call with Zheng Yujie, Poplar Fruit did not mention Fang Beibei. In fact, when he received the phone call, he wanted to tell Zheng Yujie that he had an official girlfriend. However, when the words were about to come out of his mouth, Poplar Fruit held back. At that time, the image of Zheng Yujie crying out loudly with tears in her eyes appeared in Poplar Fruit's mind. Even if you have a girlfriend and get married, I will still wait for you. Poplar Fruit could not bear to recall that scene. Perhaps, it would be unfair to her if he didn't make it clear, but if he did, it would be the greatest harm. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 660. Fang Beibei walked briskly up the stairs. As soon as she opened the door, her delicate nose twitched. Without taking off her shoes, she stuck her head in and called out, Uncle, it smells so good. The first to respond was Kiki. The little guy was riding a golden big horse. Goldie. He ran over and said with a smile, Sister Beibei, look, Kiki is so awesome. It's Goldie, he's so awesome. Fang Beibei changed her shoes and walked in. She affectionately patted Goldie's head. Goldie responded by licking her hand. She smiled and said, Goldie has to walk slowly. Don't knock Kiki down. Poplar Fruit closed the kitchen door, and the sound of the smoking machine was a little loud. He did not hear Fang Beibei's cry. However, as if their hearts were connected, he turned around and saw her smiling at Goldie and Kiki. Poplar Fruit pushed open the kitchen door and said with a smile, You're back? It'll be ready in a while. I want to see, Fang Beibei cheerfully called out. She closed the door and followed Poplar Fruit into the kitchen with her slippers. It smells so good. Is this sweet and sour pork ribs? Fang Beibei pointed at a dish that was already prepared and asked. The pork ribs were fried until they were crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The aroma was overwhelming. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. To be exact, this is braised pork ribs. Do you want to try one? Can I? Fang Beibei held her hands and looked at Poplar Fruit with stars in her eyes. This doesn't count as eating secretly, right? Haha, it's just the two of us. How could we eat it secretly? Poplar Fruit said with a bewitching smile. Try it and tell me if it tastes good. Fang Beibei squeezed beside Poplar Fruit and looked at him with a tired expression. She said coquettishly, I haven't washed my hands yet. You have to feed me. Her soft body made Poplar Fruit's heart skip a beat. However, he still turned his body slightly because he was wearing an apron. He was worried that the oil stains would stain Fang Beibei's body. Can't you wash your hands before eating? Of course, Poplar Fruit would not say something that would spoil the mood. Although Poplar Fruit usually looked like a middle-aged father, in fact, he was only 24 years old. In his chest was the heart of a young man who liked to play. Sure, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He washed his right hand, pressed the head and tail, picked up a piece of pork rib, and handed it to Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei stood intimately on Poplar Fruit's left side. She hugged Poplar Fruit's left hand with both hands and moved her face closer. From Poplar Fruit's angle, he could see Fong Beibei's flawless side profile. The only flaw was that some of her naughty long hair went past her ears like a bead curtain. Is it good? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. He looked at Fong Beibei like a puppy, seriously gnawing on the pork rib. This look was so cute. As if she felt that Poplar Fruit was comparing her to a puppy, Fong Beibei turned her face, looked at him reproachfully and said, "It's delicious. Move it, there's still more to eat." Poplar Fruit's finger moved slightly, letting Fong Beibei finish the pork rib. Fong Beibei's mouth was a little red from eating. She looked at Poplar Fruit's fiery eyes, shyly licked her lips, pulled at Poplar Fruit's left hand, and said angrily, "Don't look at me like that. Okay, after eating you can go out and rest. Wait for me to cook the remaining 2 dishes and the soup, then we can eat." Poplar Fruit threw the rib into the trash can at his feet, squeezed Fong Beibei's little hand with his left hand, and smiled warmly. "No, I want to watch you cook." Fong Beibei acted coquettishly and did not let go of Poplar Fruit's hand. "Uncle, you're so good, I want to learn from you." Poplar Fruit raised his left hand, and Fong Beibei's 2 hands were still hanging on it. He smiled and said, "With you like this, how can I cook?" Fong Beibei put down her left hand, but her right hand was still held by Poplar Fruit. She opened the 5 fingers of Poplar Fruit's left hand, put her 5 fingers in it, and then said mischievously, "Since you want to learn, I'll be your assistant. My left hand is your left hand." Looking down to the left, Fong Beibei's face was red under the light of the kitchen hood, and her eyes were filled with hope and sweetness. Why not? Poplar Fruit liked the present situation. He smiled, shrugged, and said, "Okay, then help me bring the plate of prawns over." The 2 guys who had to stand together hand in hand while cooking, stumbled and bumped as they finished the rest of the dishes. Fong Beibei walked in front of Poplar Fruit, holding a plate of dishes, and Poplar Fruit was holding 2 plates. She happily placed the dishes on the table first, and muttered, "It smells so good, it's so delicious." Fong Beibei picked up the plate of hot and sour shredded potatoes and stir-fried them twice. Of course, the heat and taste were controlled by Poplar Fruit, but Fong Beibei felt a sense of accomplishment. This plate of dishes that looked delicious and smelled like an appetizer also had a part to play in it. Poplar Fruit knew that although the latter 2 dishes were not bad, in terms of effect, they were not as good as the ones he stir-fried alone. His cooperation with Fong Beibei was somewhat delayed, and even though Poplar Fruit made up for it a lot, it was still a long way from the best. But what did it matter? Was this the ultimate taste that he and Fong Beibei were pursuing? In fact, cooking came from life, and so did Poplar Fruit. No matter how delicious the dishes were, they were just embellishments in life. What he and Fong Beibei enjoyed was the joy of the intimate interaction between the 2 of them when they were cooking. Whether the taste of the dish was better or worse, it wasn't that important anymore. "Kiki, come." Fong Beibei waved to Kiki. She picked up 2 golden hot and sour shredded potatoes and sent them to Kiki's mouth, and asked happily, "Kiki, try it, is it delicious?" Because it was a Cantonese dish, Poplar Fruit put very little chili, and it was almost impossible to taste the spicy taste, so Kiki did not show any resistance when she ate it. One must know that the little fellow could not eat spicy food. She was very disgusted with the smell of fish and spicy food. Slowly chew before eating. Fong Beibei squatted at the side and advised, "Delicious." Kiki smacked her lips, licked her teeth, and nodded vigorously. She did not know what adjectives to use to express her praise, so she just opened her mouth. "More? Okay, sister will get it for you." This was actually the best praise. Fong Beibei happily stood up and gave Kiki 2 more shredded potatoes. At this time, Goldie also came over. It looked at Fong Beibei eagerly, and stuck out its tongue, as if it also wanted to taste the delicious food that its little master praised. "You have your own, don't fight with Kiki." Fong Beibei smiled and flicked its wet nose, and did not give it any. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 661. After dinner, Poplar Fruit asked Fong Beibei to do her homework. Poplar Fruit had long passed the time when he needed to be with his girlfriend all the time. After becoming a father, he was much more mature than his peers. Fong Beibei was a little reluctant, and wanted to sit with Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "I'll take care of the little princess first. She still needs to take a bath. Wait for a while, I'll accompany you later." Fong Beibei didn't insist. She really needed to concentrate on her homework. During the day, they discussed a few good hypotheses, and then designed the corresponding mathematical structure around them, which was the modeling. Next, they needed to further solve, analyze, test, and summarize. Tonight, Fong Beibei needed to focus on the modeling during the day, and calculate the data for the part she was responsible for. This step was very troublesome. Although she had the help of software such as SPSS, Fong Beibei still had to enter the parameters very carefully. If she made a mistake in the decimal point, it might cause a big deviation in the later data. Poplar Fruit gave Kiki a bath. Kiki was very excited when she took a bath today, because she could see her good friend, the little yellow duck, again. In the past, when he gave Kiki a bath, Poplar Fruit had to be very careful, because Kiki couldn't sit still. Now that Kiki had grown up, Poplar Fruit's burden was a lot less. He could let Kiki sit in the bathtub. The water wasn't deep, so she could play with it however she wanted. The yellow rubber duckling was brought back from the house in Jindi district today. Kiki hadn't seen this little friend for almost 2 months. Poplar Fruit thought that Kiki had forgotten the old because of the new one, but she still remembered. Moreover, before taking a bath, she excitedly ran back to the room and took out the yellow duck from the box. She insisted on taking a bath with it. Well, with the little yellow duck, Kiki couldn't even take a bath properly. Poplar Fruit was drenched by her, and had to take another bath. He had taken a bath right after he came back to move his things. Since she didn't sleep in the afternoon, Kiki was also sleepy. She played with her father on the bed for a while before obediently letting her father carry her back to her little bed to sleep. However, before going to bed, Kiki pulled her father aside and asked him to tell her a bedtime story. This was a habit that he had developed when he was in the Hmong village. When Poplar Fruit taught the children, he would often tell some interesting stories to liven up the atmosphere of the class. Then Kiki would be addicted to it. There was no entertainment in the Meow village at night, so Kiki asked her father to tell her a story, and then fell asleep with the story. For this reason, Poplar Fruit even searched for a lot of stories that were suitable for children on the internet and memorized them. Later, he thought of a way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, which was to tell Kiki English stories. In fact, Kiki was often exposed to these stories when she was with her father. Under the influence of her father, she could already understand many English letters and ordinary conversations. Therefore, when Poplar Fruit read the English version of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales to her, Kiki often needed to ask her father for the meaning in the story at first, but later, she could understand it very well. Poplar Fruit felt that listening to the story and learning English at the same time was more effective than letting Kiki study in boredom. After coaxing Kiki to sleep, Poplar Fruit turned off the bedroom light and went back to the living room. Fong Beibei was sitting in front of the desk, looking serious as she struggled with the computer. Poplar Fruit looked at her, but he did not go over. Instead, he sat down on the sofa next to her and turned on Song Jiwen's computer. He logged into Shinda's translation platform and looked for some gold medal small language tasks to do. Even though Poplar Fruit was tapping rhythmically on the keyboard, Fong Beibei did not raise her head to look at him. She was already immersed in her own mathematics world. This was the difference between a top student and an ordinary person. Top students did not need to be forced to study by others. They had a strong drive. Moreover, when they were studying, they would be very immersed. They would not be distracted by a beautiful bird outside the window. Even if they studied for an hour, their learning would be 5 hours or more than an ordinary person. Poplar Fruit himself was not a top student. At least before he became smart, His studies were the same as Song Ji-wen's. They were just getting by. Even in school, they were only at the average level. For some subjects that they were not good at, they just did not want to fail. They did not have any higher goals. Fang Beibei was different. She was the best among her peers since she was young. If it were not for the fact that she was partial to her subjects, she would have been studying at Beijing University. Looking at her serious look, Poplar Fruit knew that she had entered her top student mode. Even though Fang Beibei was acting coquettishly and wanted him to study with her, Poplar Fruit would not disturb her at this time. He could not bear to disturb her. Her serious look was like a devout angel, beautiful and holy, with a halo that made people cherish her. The clock ticked twice. Unknowingly, as the two of them studied and worked quietly, the old residential area was already immersed in the quiet night. When Fang Beibei sat down on the sofa, Poplar Fruit felt it. After he finished typing this line, he turned his head with a smile and looked at his beloved woman. "What are you translating?" When Fang Beibei saw Poplar Fruit stop, she happily squeezed next to Poplar Fruit, as if the large sofa could not accommodate her thin figure. "A foreign company's contract in Italian." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Have you finished your homework?" "No, I just finished tonight's task. With the data, I can discuss it with them tomorrow." Fang Beibei leaned on Poplar Fruit and said, "You do your work first, don't worry about me, I'll just take a look." Poplar Fruit felt Fang Beibei's soft body and fresh fragrance, which made him more or less restless, but he was still able to control himself. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "Don't worry, I can translate while talking to you." "Multitasking? Then will the quality of the manuscript be bad?" Fang Beibei asked worriedly. "No, actually when I read the original text, I already know how to translate it." Poplar Fruit did not stop typing, he demonstrated to her. "Look, these are the words I'm typing, they have already formed in my mind." Poplar Fruit's multitasking ability was getting more and more skilled. He could even translate the next manuscript in his mind while he was typing the previous manuscript. This made his translation speed far faster than any of the gold medal translators on the Xinda platform. "That's amazing!" Fang Beibei exclaimed. "Why don't I have such an amazing ability?" Although Poplar Fruit was chatting with Fang Beibei while he was typing, Fang Beibei was not willing to speak at this time. Although she knew that even if she spoke, Poplar Fruit would not be affected, this feeling of hindering her boyfriend was not good. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 662. After translating the task, Poplar Fruit tossed his laptop aside. He could continue working after Fang Beibei went to bed. At this time, he still had time to spend with his girlfriend. After peeling the two apples, he separated them like he did in the afternoon and removed the cores. However, this time, Poplar Fruit did not split them into 4 equal portions. Instead, he split them into 8 equal portions. This way, he could eat 1 apple at a time and it would be more convenient. Fang Beibei even ran to the kitchen and sprinkled some salt in, saying that it would taste better this way. "Uncle, let's think of a nice nickname for each other, shall we?" Fang Beibei grabbed Poplar Fruit's right hand. The two of them continued to sit together with their fingers interlocked. Poplar Fruit picked up a piece of apple with a toothpick and fed it to her. Then he smiled and said, "Have you been watching Korean variety shows recently? Which couple are you chasing now?" When Poplar Fruit was chatting with Fang Beibei on the phone previously, Fang Beibei told him about many Korean variety shows. The one she talked about the most was We're Married. Of course, she paid the most attention to the Chinese team captain Victoria and Nichkun in FX. This couple was nicknamed Winnie and Mr. and Mrs. Winnie by the fans in the country, and was highly sought after by Fang Beibei. Unfortunately, before Fang Beibei could start watching, Winnie and Mr. and Mrs. Winnie had already gotten off the show. This made her feel very regretful. Poplar Fruit also watched some Korean variety shows because of Fang Beibei. Of course, the ones he watched were picked out by Fang Beibei for him to watch. Until now, he only had an understanding of them. Poplar Fruit did not really like Korean variety shows, but he did not dislike them either. That was because he did not pay much attention to the entertainment industry. and was not as fanatical as those fans who chased after celebrities. However, although he was very calm, Poplar Fruit still thought highly of Korean variety shows. In terms of content innovation and the dedication of the hosts, none of the major television stations in the country could compare. I'm not chasing after them. After watching Winnie and her husband, there's nothing else to see. Especially the recent season. Fong Beibei curled her lips and said, "Well, it seems that I'm going to change my name today." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Are you finally going to change my nickname? If it were you, you'd also be a weird uncle." Fong Beibei hugged Poplar Fruit's arm and looked up at him. Her eyes curved into crescents as she giggled. "You tell me first. What do you want to call me? Beibei sounds pretty good. Why don't we just call her Beibei?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head and gave a completely unoriginal suggestion. Fong Beibei pinched Poplar Fruit's arm as she pouted and shook her head. "Not good, not good. You don't even use your brain." It wasn't that Beibei was bad, but Fong Beibei felt that everyone who knew her called her Beibei. If Poplar Fruit still called her that, it really wasn't distinguishable at all. Especially when Fong Beibei remembered that annoying and disgusting senior brother Wang Di also called her Beibei, as if she was very close to him. Fong Beibei felt that she couldn't let her boyfriend call her by this nickname. Then what should I call her? Fong Fong? Poplar Fruit was having a headache. Xiaobei? The nickname Fong Fong sounded weird. Fong Beibei rejected it immediately. Xiaobei, she felt like she was calling Beckham. Or baby baby. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, "Baby?" Fong Beibei felt a little moved, but she was still a little hesitant. She always felt that it was a little imperfect. Poplar Fruit had an idea. He looked at Fong Beibei's glasses and smiled gently. "How about this? I'll call you Baby." Baby. When Fong Beibei heard this name, half of her body went limp. She felt that Poplar Fruit's eyes could speak, and a strong sense of love flowed out from his eyes. "Yes." Poplar Fruit pinched Fong Beibei's left hand and gently explained, "Baby is first of all a repetition of words. It's better to call it baby, isn't it? Also, it can correspond with your name and combine into the meaning of baby. Most importantly, you and Kiki are the most important girls in my life. I will love you like I love Kiki, protect you like a baby, cherish you like a treasure, and never let go of you." Although it was an explanation, Fong Beibei was more willing to believe that this was Poplar Fruit's confession of love. Her heart melted when she heard it. Looking at Poplar Fruit with a gentle gaze, Fong Beibei's heart was filled with tenderness. Perhaps at this time, if Poplar Fruit kissed her, she would most likely not refuse. Poplar Fruit looked at his girlfriend with a smile. In fact, he was also moved by Fong Beibei's current appearance, but he still remembered Fong Beibei's previous request. Take it slow. Feelings need to be brewed for years to become a fragrant wine. Advancing by leaps and bounds was not suitable for them. "Do you like it, baby?" Poplar Fruit called out softly. "I like it." Fong Beibei smiled sweetly. "Then what do you call me?" Poplar Fruit asked gently. Oh, Fong Beibei pouted as she thought. She asked, "What do you like me to call you?" Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "I like whatever you call me, because you are a baby." When Fong Beibei heard this, she called out softly and put her head on Poplar Fruit's arm, insisting that he give her a suggestion. "My family all call me Fruit. Many of my friends also call me that. And then that guy Mosquito, he calls me Old Fruit. It seems that I only have these many nicknames." Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, "Does no one call you Yanghua? The pronunciation sounds so good." Fong Beibei giggled and said, "Why don't I be like Xiao Longnu and call you Gua Air?" Poplar Fruit was stunned. His eyes suddenly lost their spirit. It was as if he had traveled through time and space and saw the past. There was also a girl who called him Gua Air. Fong Beibei felt that Poplar Fruit's face was a little ugly. It was as if the air had frozen. Her heart was in a mess. She jokingly said, "Hey, give me some reaction." Poplar Fruit took a deep breath. The people of the past had already drifted away with the river of time. He could not live in the past. He should cherish the people in front of him. "I think it's better not to." Poplar Fruit shook his head. He did not try to hide it. He smiled and said, This is what my ex-girlfriend called me. Fong Beibei's expression was a little sluggish. Her eyes were a little complicated. Her mouth muttered, as if she wanted to ask something but could not say it. Poplar Fruit stretched out his left hand and rubbed Fong Beibei's head. He smiled and said, "Why aren't you saying anything? Aren't you thinking too much? I don't want you to call me that, not because of old feelings. I don't want to relive the unhappiness of the past. Even if it's just a misunderstanding, I don't want it. I care about you. I don't want to let you go like that time. Because you are far more important than her. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than or equal to asterisk." Chapter 663. Are you still angry? Poplar Fruit asked apprehensively. He was worried that Fong Beibei would hold a grudge against him after he mentioned her ex. In fact, Fong Beibei's grievances had already disappeared when Poplar Fruit took the initiative to explain. However, she still refused to let it go. She pulled Poplar Fruit's arm and said coquettishly, "No, you have to compensate me. It wasn't easy for me to think of a good one." This made Poplar Fruit's head hurt. He had to think of a nickname for himself. It had to be humorous, intimate, and catchy. This was a very awkward thing to do. Poplar Fruit thought of a few names, but they were all rejected by Fong Beibei. "Baby, you think about it too. I can't think of one even if I break my head." Poplar Fruit scratched his head with his left hand and said, "I thought of a good one, but you said no." Fong Beibei said angrily, "That's just an exception. There's no second one." Poplar Fruit smiled and raised his left hand. He swore, "Baby, you name one. I promise I won't object. I'll like it no matter what it is." "Really?" Fong Beibei turned around and knelt on the sofa to look at him. She asked in surprise. Poplar Fruit saw a trace of craftiness in her beautiful eyes. He felt a little regretful. It seemed like he had made a very wrong decision. However, Fong Beibei gave him a chance to back out. She held Poplar Fruit's hand with her left hand, and then her right hand suddenly reached over and sealed Poplar Fruit's mouth. The two looked at each other. Fong Beibei said in a threatening tone, "A man's word is worth 9 tons. You can't back out." Since she said so, what else could Poplar Fruit do? He raised his left hand and Fong Beibei let go of his mouth. Poplar Fruit said, "I won't back out. It's just that you can't go too far." "I won't go overboard, hee." Fong Beibei shifted her butt and found a more comfortable position. Her white and thin thighs touched the Poplar Fruit. The Poplar Fruit immediately felt a chill. Girls belong to the cold type of creatures. This saying was not wrong at all. "Didn't you call me baby? Then I'll call you uncle," Fong Beibei said with a smile. She also carefully looked at the Poplar Fruit, afraid that the Poplar Fruit would cause a big reaction. Poplar Fruit shook his head with a bitter smile and asked, "Why is it still called this? Shouldn't you change it?" Originally, Poplar Fruit thought that he would be able to get rid of the strange title of uncle. At the very least, he would be able to be on the same level as his girlfriend. In the end, after talking for so long, he was back to square one. "I didn't even call you weird uncle. Are you still not satisfied?" Fong Beibei used her arm to push the Poplar Fruit and said with a smile. Could he say that he was not satisfied? Poplar Fruit said with a bitter smile, "It's not that I'm not satisfied. It's just that the nickname I gave you was so creative. But when it came to me, why didn't you change it?" Fong Beibei sat cross-legged and let go of the Poplar Fruit's hand. She gestured with both hands and explained to the Poplar Fruit, "You see, you called me baby, right? Then it gave me the feeling that you're either my father or my uncle. In any case, you're one generation older. You can't count it that way. The meaning of baby is just the literal meaning. It's mainly to express affection." Poplar Fruit gently reminded, "Well, I don't blame you for your poor language skills. Uncle is also a nickname. It's not like I want you to be my uncle. Don't you think so?" Fong Beibei retorted. "What's more," Fong Beibei paused, "that Yonggua can call Xiaolong new auntie. Why can't I call you uncle?" Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment. He looked at Fong Beibei's pouting face and realized that Fong Beibei hadn't completely let go of her ex-girlfriend. Poplar Fruit reached out and pulled Fong Beibei's left hand, which was on his leg over. Their fingers were tightly intertwined. Then he pulled her over and let her lean on his shoulder. I know that you're the one who takes care of me and cares about me the most, right? Fong Beibei whispered in Poplar Fruit's ear. Even if I call you uncle. Poplar Fruit's left hand gently patted Fong Beibei's left hand that he was holding. He smiled and said, Of course. There's no other strange uncle as good as you in the world. No strange uncle. Only uncles. Fong Beibei smiled and corrected him. But, you have to be honest with me. Fong Beibei turned her head and raised her chin to look at Poplar Fruit. Her cheeks were blushing shyly. When we first met, did you fall in love with me? Why are you using such genteel words? Poplar Fruit laughed in surprise. Don't stray from the topic. Answer me honestly. Fong Beibei said angrily. At that time, Yang Guo looked at Fong Beibei's oval-shaped face, which hadn't changed much. She was still as captivating as the little girl who looked back with a smile at the lakeside of East Lake. At that time, was she unable to let go of her as she was now? Poplar Fruit said honestly, It's hard to say. Maybe. At that time, I just fell out of love. Kiki was also a month old. Poplar Fruit explained, I didn't have the heart to think about anything else. Then why do you say maybe? Fong Beibei was silent for a moment and asked. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Because I was really moved. From the moment you turned around to look at me, I felt that this girl was very beautiful. She should be the goddess of us boys. If I was in the same grade as you when I first entered university, I believe that I would definitely worship you as a goddess. Smooth talker. Fong Beibei pushed Poplar Fruit and said angrily. Just now, Poplar Fruit said that he didn't, which made her feel a little disappointed. Do you still have the photos I took of you at that time? Poplar Fruit suddenly asked. Yes, I have saved them on my computer. When I went back, I felt that you took very good photos, so I didn't delete them. Fong Beibei said. Under Poplar Fruit's urging, Fong Beibei brought the computer over and opened the photos that Poplar Fruit took of Fong Beibei. What surprised Poplar Fruit was that Fong Beibei took a photo of his back when he turned around and left. Fong Beibei forgot about it. If Poplar Fruit didn't click on the photo and the photo suddenly jumped up, they wouldn't have noticed. Poplar Fruit smiled a little proudly. Fong Beibei was a little shy. She pulled Poplar Fruit's mouth and didn't let him smile. Look at these. When I took photos of you and Kiki, you were actually the center of my focus. Poplar Fruit turned back and showed Fong Beibei the photos he took at that time. Then he looked at Fong Beibei and smiled. I think, at that time, I should have liked you very much. There was a feeling that you were the whole world in my eyes. Poplar Fruit seemed to be poetic. He sang under Fong Beibei's sparkling eyes. When I see you, the flowers in the garden will lose their color. When I see you, no matter how beautiful the stars are, they can't set off your brilliance. It's just that I was too stupid at that time and didn't understand my own heart. Fortunately, I didn't really miss you. Thank God for giving me a second chance to see you. I will cherish it forever. I just saw an interesting repost on Weibo. Those who are interested can take a look at Guofeng, Zhengfeng, Shuyu Tian on Baidu Encyclopedia. This is an article in the Book of Songs. Then there is a note. Shu refers to a male lover. Haha, okay. Poplar Fruit's knee was hit by an arrow. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 664. Me too. Fong Beibei held Yang Guo's hand tightly, her eyes glistening with tears. It seemed that her emotions had turned into tears, and they were swirling in her eyes. Okay. Baby, don't cry. Poplar Fruit smiled and wiped her smooth face with his left hand, wiping away a tear from the corner of her eye. Let's talk about something happy, shall we? Okay. Fong Beibei leaned on Poplar Fruit's arm and let out a long, soft sound. How are you preparing for the competition now? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned it. Now that he mentioned it, Fong Beibei frowned. She pouted and said unhappily, It doesn't feel good. It's so annoying. Poplar Fruit comforted her. Actually, you don't have to care too much about the results. Isn't this your first time participating in a competition? Just think of it as accumulating experience. Moreover, it's such a good thing to be able to travel abroad. When I was a freshman and sophomore, I could only look enviously at you guys who could fly here and there at public expense. We have to go all out in the competition. Fong Beibei felt that Poplar Fruit's idea was wrong. She retorted, if we don't want to be first, then why are we participating in the competition? I might as well go to Bali with you and watch your show. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, okay, then let's not participate in the competition. You can go to Bali with me. I'd be more than happy to. Fong Beibei punched him and said angrily, how can that be? I've been preparing for this competition for a long time. Poplar Fruit smiled and pinched Fong Beibei's left hand. He comforted her and said, I'm just kidding. I definitely support you to prove yourself. Tell me, what do you feel is not good enough? Let's think of a way together. Fong Beibei leaned back on Poplar Fruit's shoulder. She held Poplar Fruit's right hand and played with it as she said, if it's just math, I'm not afraid. You know I've always been good at math. But when it comes to English, no matter how much I study it, I just can't get it right. English? Are you going to write a thesis? Poplar Fruit thought about it. He wasn't too surprised. Previously, Poplar Fruit had learned about the competition process of the American Mathematical Modeling Competition because of Fong Beibei. He saw that the last part was to write a thesis in English. He knew that this was a very difficult task for Fong Beibei. How did you know? Fong Beibei asked in surprise. Nonsense, as your boyfriend, how can I not know about the competition you're going to participate in? Poplar Fruit smiled proudly. He thought about it and asked curiously, but aren't you guys in a team of 3? Your English isn't good. You can find someone who is good at English to partner with you. Poplar Fruit knew that although Fong Beibei had passed CET4 after his training, her actual ability was still far from being able to write a thesis. Not to mention Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit's graduation year. Even if he passed CET8 in English, writing a thesis was extremely painful. Fong Beibei pouted and said in a wrong manner, I'm a senior. Those who are good at English have already been pulled away by the seniors. I don't even have a chance. This was the disadvantage of Fong Beibei entering the competition team in her first year. Although she had performed well in several assignments, for the senior brothers and sisters of the senior grade, it was difficult for a girl without any competition experience to obtain good results in an international competition. Therefore, Fong Beibei did not become the target of the senior brothers and sisters to rope her in. Most of the boys in the competition team were nerds. In their eyes, competition results were far more attractive than a beautiful girl. Of course, Wang Di was a different story. Until now, the person who was most likely to be in the same team as Fong Beibei was only Senior Shenhong. However, although Senior Shenhong was a senior, her English level was only average. Her math level was even worse than Fong Beibei's. What was worse was that Senior Shenhong was also participating in a competition for the first time. Her experience was the same as Fong Beibei's 0. If it weren't for this reason, Fong Beibei wouldn't have to worry about falling out. At that time, even Senior Wang Di wouldn't be willing to be in the same team as them. Wang Di was in the seeded team of Higashiyama University last year. He and 2 other seniors who were now studying abroad got the best result of Higashiyama University that year, finalist. It was called the Special Award Nomination in China. However, most people thought that he was a hitchhiker because the 2 seniors were really strong. Whether or not he was a hitchhiker, Wang Di still had some ability after all. Not only did he have competition experience, but he also participated in writing the competition thesis. This was a good supplement for Fong Beibei and Senior Shenhong. Fong Beibei told Poplar Fruit a lot about their training for more than a month. Poplar Fruit suddenly realized that Fong Beibei didn't have it easy. She joined the competition team as a freshman. It was rare in Higashiyama University, so many seniors ostracized her. However, she didn't complain to Poplar Fruit before. She had been working hard silently. You guys can't communicate with the outside world, right? Although you have 3 days of competition time. Poplar Fruit asked. When he saw Fong Beibei nodding, he said regretfully, it's a pity. If it's possible, I can help you guys translate the Chinese thesis directly into English. I guarantee that it's better than those Native American college students. It's just not possible, Fong Beibei said with regret. Not only the thesis, but the English version of the SPSS software is also giving me a headache. I'll take you through the software later. Let's talk about the thesis first. You guys can bring your own books, right? Poplar Fruit asked. Yes, you can bring your computer, and you can also go online, Fong Beibei said regretfully. It's just that you can't contact the rest of the team. If you catch them, you won't be able to participate in the competition in the future. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, That's easy. I can help you guys write a secret manual for writing your thesis. If there are any commonly used sentences and words, I will list them all in a document. When the time comes, when you write the thesis, you can search for them accordingly. As long as someone's English is good enough to write a thesis fluently, I believe that with my secret manual, you guys will be able to write your thesis easily. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I guarantee that this secret manual will be more useful than looking it up in a dictionary. But you don't know mathematics, right? Fong Beibei asked worriedly. Haha, baby, you have to believe me, Poplar Fruit said confidently. Your boyfriend is a professional translator. Earlier, I didn't study law or chemistry, but didn't I still translate the chemical company's contract information? As long as you help me find enough model materials, I can help you guys summarize it. Fong Beibei sat and looked at Poplar Fruit's confident look. Her heart felt warm, as if there was a force supporting her, and she no longer felt hesitant and confused. Uncle, Fong Beibei smiled and said, You're so good to me. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Of course, if I'm not good to you, who am I good to? Although it was a bit mushy, Fong Beibei felt very happy. However, at this time, she remembered that the team still had an invisible bomb to deal with. At noon, senior sister Shun Hong's suggestion floated in her mind. Uncle, can you accompany me to meet my teammates tomorrow? Fong Beibei pulled Poplar Fruit's hand and asked softly, I know you're busy tomorrow, so accompany me to meet them. Poplar Fruit thought for a moment. Tomorrow morning, he had to meet the teacher. At least he would be in school for the whole day. He still had time to accompany Fong Beibei. He didn't ask for the reason but smiled and said, Okay. What time do you think is suitable? I'm going to meet the dean tomorrow. Then at noon, I should go to his house for lunch. Do you want to come with me at noon? Poplar Fruit asked. My master's wife always wants me to bring a girlfriend to meet her, haha. Fong Beibei was a bit shy, but she didn't want to hide in school. She thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Then come and pick me up at noon. Let's say hello to my teammates and then we'll go together. 2,500 plus chapters. Thank you book friend 49 **** 19 for your encouragement. Thank you book friend, only love Ife for your rewards. Your recognition and support is the motivation for Xiaohan to persevere and work hard to write better. P.S. Xiaohan is also a fan of Fairy Sister. In the past, when he saw the demigods and semi-devils and the condor heroes, the fairy sister in white fluttering clothes was an existence that could turn people upside down. Now that she has washed away her childish appearance, she is even more beautiful. Speaking of which, when he wrote Duan Xueqing, Xiaohan thought of the fairy sister's appearance. However, there was no reference for her personality, so he didn't make Duan Xueqing the female lead. Please don't be unhappy. Chapter 665. You still know how to come back? Even though midsummer was almost over, the weather in Yangcheng was still scorching hot. The sun at around 9 o'clock was already unbearably hot, and the air was filled with the smell of mud. Poplar Fruit stood in the small garden and looked at his mentor Chen Zongdai with a bitter smile. On the right, Kiki was accompanied by her mentor's wife. She was chatting with a few children and trying to play with them. Chen Zongdai was wearing a straw hat and was loosening the soil and watering his flowers. He was so busy that he didn't pay attention to Poplar Fruit. Chen Zongdai was satisfied and helpless with his proud disciple. With Poplar Fruit's superior talent, even Chen Zongdai, who was one of the top linguists and translators in the country, couldn't estimate Poplar Fruit's future achievements. Poplar Fruit's improvement was especially obvious after Chen Zongdai began to personally guide him. He went from a self-taught genius to a solid academic scholar. Moreover, when Poplar Fruit proposed his theory of translation, Chen Zongdai no longer limited Poplar Fruit's development with his own ideas. Poplar Fruit had already begun to soar. However, Chen Zongdai, who should be satisfied, was often annoyed by Poplar Fruit's unprofessional behavior. At first, Chen Zongdai felt that it was acceptable for Poplar Fruit to take up an important position in Sinda translation. After all, this was part of their field of expertise. Chen Zongdai also hoped that a large company like Sinda would give their students more practical and employment opportunities. Not only did Chen Zongdai not object to Poplar Fruit's literary translation work, but he also approved of it. As a translation scholar, if Poplar Fruit lacked practical experience, he wouldn't be able to make any progress and discoveries. However, when Poplar Fruit's progress was at its peak, he suddenly went on vacation. He stayed in the mountains of Guishan province for half a month, after the seminar. Not only that, Poplar Fruit also asked for a leave of absence from September to October. For about a month, he went abroad to be a model. Please, you're a scholar. You should stand on the podium and speak energetically, not catwalk on the runway, and accept the baptism of light. However, his wife's words were very reasonable. With Poplar Fruit's qualifications, even if he doesn't become an old scholar like you, he can still do well in other industries. Now is not the era of learning. Why do you limit this child's development? Let's let him go out, and he'll make progress that you can't even imagine. The modest, low-key, and polite Poplar Fruit was very liked by his wife. This made Chen Zongdai feel a little jealous. However, after his wife's enlightenment, Chen Zongdai didn't stop Poplar Fruit from doing anything other than studying. He even approved Poplar Fruit's application for a month's leave. But his heart didn't agree. When Poplar Fruit came back to visit for the first time, Chen Zongdai mocked him. Chen Zongdai loosened the soil for a while before patting his old waist and slowly standing up. Poplar Fruit hurriedly went to help him. Chen Zongdai's face relaxed a little. He looked at Poplar Fruit's nervous expression. Although he still kept a straight face, his heart was blooming with joy. This little guy, if I don't beat him, his butt will jump up. Chen Zongdai wasn't really angry. He couldn't wait to care about this proud disciple of his. How could he bear to scold him? This time, he was serious because he realized that Poplar Fruit's journey seemed to be a little too smooth. If he didn't let him come back to his senses, Chen Zongdai was worried that this child would die prematurely because of his pride. Chen Zongdai stopped before going too far. He nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "Okay, let's go in and talk." Poplar Fruit breathed a sigh of relief and followed his teacher into his study. Outside, Kiki was playing with her new friends. Poplar Fruit wasn't too worried. In terms of learning, Chen Zongdai had a persistence that other teachers didn't have. Before they started chatting, Chen Zongdai first tested Poplar Fruit's learning situation. Now Chen Zongdai couldn't teach Poplar Fruit too much. He could only rely on his decades of experience compared to Poplar Fruit to guide Poplar Fruit to self-study some unorthodox foreign theories. He didn't want Poplar Fruit to accept everything, but he wanted him to further improve his own theories through learning. Poplar Fruit secretly wiped away his cold sweat. Fortunately, he took some time to study during the second half of the holiday. With his efficiency that was several times higher than ordinary people, he was able to answer the teacher's questions fluently. Don't slack off in your studies. Keep working hard. Chen Zongdai didn't express his satisfaction. He only nodded slightly. Then, Poplar Fruit reported to his teacher what he had done in the Hmong village. To Chen Zongdai, who was also his teacher and father, Poplar Fruit had nothing to hide. When he heard that Poplar Fruit had a purpose for staying in the Hmong village for half a month, Chen Zongdai nodded approvingly. Chen Zongdai was surprised that not only did he not waste his time, but he was also doing something meaningful. He couldn't help but applaud Poplar Fruit in his heart. However, this didn't mean that Chen Zongdai fully approved of what Poplar Fruit had done. He frowned. Poplar Fruit, distance education isn't as simple as you think. Chen Zongdai shook his head and said. Poplar Fruit thought that his teacher was worried about the same as Meng Ping. However, after several attempts, Poplar Fruit was very confident about his plan. Although almost no one had done it before, Poplar Fruit was still confident that he could take the first step. Chun Zongdai waved his hand and interrupted Poplar Fruit's explanation. He sighed softly and said, "Poplar Fruit, did you think I was referring to this when I said it wasn't simple?" Poplar Fruit looked at his teacher in confusion and asked, "Then what is it?" Chun Zongdai didn't answer directly. Instead, he talked about entrepreneurship. Now, under the promotion of the country, entrepreneurship is being promoted everywhere. Among our graduates this year, 5 of them didn't go to school or work. They went to start their own businesses. Of course, they went to open an online store. Chun Zongdai sneered and said, "But entrepreneurship isn't as simple as they think it is. Although entrepreneurship is also a way out, without experience and support from the society, I dare say that among these 5 students, it's already very good if one of them succeeds. Entrepreneurship requires the right time, the right place and the right people." Chun Zongdai said, "The right time they have it. The country supports them, and the school also has a startup fund that they can apply for. What about the right place? The trouble of opening an online store in the past has been solved by an online store. That's considered good luck. But what about the right people? I don't think they have anyone." Chun Zongdai said firmly, "Now there are so many young people who are passionately diving into the entrepreneurial army. How fierce is the competition between them? Even if there are a few who stand out, maybe they have good management, or maybe they have a disruptive way of making profits." Chun Zongdai shook his head and said, "But in front of them, there are countless industry giants eyeing them covetously. If you want to disrupt them and move forward, you might be taken down by others first. Or you might be directly acquired by others. This is no longer the golden era of entrepreneurship in the 1990s, and the beginning of the new century. Just look at Tung Su, this big company. Over the years, how many promising seedlings have been swallowed up? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, greater than over equal to." Chapter 666. Although Chun Zongdai talked about the risks of starting a business, which seemed to have nothing to do with Poplar Fruit could still vaguely understand the meaning of his teacher's words. "Teacher, are you saying that someone will stop me from doing distance education?" Poplar Fruit frowned and asked. "That's right." Chun Zongdai counted with his fingers and said, "There's a political environment in Lidong, where there are no officials who will stop you for the time being. There's also the increasingly developing internet environment. You have all the right time and place. The only thing you lack is people. You still don't know how big of an impact your distance education will have on the current education system, right?" Chun Zongdai smiled and asked. Poplar Fruit frowned and said, "If it can be done well, it should be subversive. It might change the traditional education model." Chun Zongdai nodded. "Because it's subversive, so they will oppose me?" Poplar Fruit hesitated and asked, "What do you think?" Chun Zongdai asked back, "If your distance education becomes a public form, and the effect you said is more vivid and interesting than traditional teachers, wouldn't this force these teachers to lose their jobs?" Poplar Fruit's expression was a little unhappy. He gritted his teeth and said with a little anger, "Teacher, isn't that wrong? First of all, let's not talk about whether I can affect the entire education industry. Even if it's distance education, it still needs people to support it. Without a teacher on the other side, how can education be created out of thin air? Moreover, with the elementary school level we're facing now, we need people to follow closely and give different guidance to each child's situation. A simple cold machine can't do that. Why would they feel threatened?" Poplar Fruit's mouth was like a machine gun, spewing out his inner anger. "In addition, I'm doing distance education not to subvert anyone. I just want to help those kids who can't go to school in the mountainous areas. They are not willing to pay a little more, and no one is willing to teach children in such a difficult environment. I just thought of a way for the children to be able to study. What right do they have to criticize us?" After calming down, Poplar Fruit looked at Chun Zongdai apologetically and said, "I'm sorry, teacher. I didn't mean it to you. I know you're doing this for my own good." Actually, Poplar Fruit had been suppressing these emotions in his heart for a long time. Meng Ping's doubts and Big Brother He's advice made him feel that there were actually so many people opposing him when he wanted to do a good deed. This was only the beginning. Poplar Fruit was not stupid. He could guess that if he wanted to promote this model, he would encounter a lot of obstacles. This sullen feeling accompanied Poplar Fruit all the way back to Yangcheng from Gui Mountain. It was only until he met his teacher, who was like a talent scout to him, that he could vent his frustrations. It's fine. Chen Zongdai waved his hand. He felt strangely proud in his heart. Poplar Fruit did not know that his teacher, who was almost 60 years old, was actually muttering in his heart. Hee hee kid, you also have times when you're anxious? Normally, Poplar Fruit seemed to be calm and collected about everything. People could not help but mistake him for an old man, and not a young man in his early 20s. Young people should act like young people. They should have the drive to not be afraid of losing. They should have the courage to fight until their heads bled. I'm just telling you the truth. Chen Zongdai laughed and said, there will always be some stubborn old people who can't see through the old traditions, and there will always be some interest groups who want to maintain their high and mighty position. This is a situation that all reformers will encounter. If we shrink back in the face of obstacles, then there won't be a country like ours, and there won't be an open society like ours. Chen Zongdai said seriously. If you want to walk ahead of others and make an outstanding career, you can't do it without a tenacious spirit. Poplar Fruit listened very seriously. He said gratefully, thank you, teacher. With your support, I will persevere. No, I don't support you. Chen Zongdai gave Poplar Fruit a huge reversal. He shook his head and said, I just don't support you. Our school and the university will not support you. Poplar Fruit was a little stunned, but he thought of the key point. Chen Zongdai was the dean of the outer courtyard. He represented the school, and the school represented Higashiyama University. If the Higashiyama University supported him with great fanfare, it would put the school on the opposite side of the entire education system. Even if Chen Zongdai was a person of virtue and prestige, it would not be able to offset this negative impact. Seeing Poplar Fruit's ugly face gradually become better, and his eyes become clear again, Chen Zongdai nodded secretly. He was very pleased that Poplar Fruit could see the problem from the big picture. I won't give you any obvious resources. Even before you achieve something and gain the momentum, the school will not give you any rewards or publicity for what you have done, Chen Zongdai said. These are all empty promises. We just want to do one thing well, and that is to let the children in the mountains be able to go to school. Poplar Fruit said sincerely, the role of honor is not as simple as you think. Chen Zongdai shook his head, but he did not say much. Poplar Fruit was still not involved in such a high-level struggle. Then can I still apply for a public welfare club? Even the school won't let me? Poplar Fruit frowned and asked. He needed the support of other students. His time and power were limited. Student clubs are managed by students.